Can everybody hear me? Think you can hear me now?
Oh, no.
Okay. Is it working? Oh. Can everybody hear me? There we go. Okay. Welcome everybody to the Wethersfield Town Council meeting for Monday, September 5th. Councilwoman Clancy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Sue, would you do us the honor of attendance tonight?
Councilor Carbone?
Here.
Councilor Clancy?
Here.
Councilor Forrest?
Here.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Lesser?
Here.
Councilor O'Connor?
Here.
Councilor Pentelo?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Here.
Mayor Rell.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And for us tonight, we have a presentation for the outstanding men and women here, both with the Volunteer Fire Department and with the Police Department. And I think I'll turn it over to Chief Schroll to first say a few words. And
Thank you,
Chief
Mayor
Medina, are you going to speak as well? Just? Okay.
Mayor
Last
Ralph.
meeting was yours.
Mayor Rell, fellow council persons, Town Manager Presley, I'd like to call up retired Lieutenant Tom Lawton, firefighter Chris Hock, firefighter, wow. Yes, Rob Sharkovich Sr., and police officers Nunez and Wildman, please, to the front. Center podium. Thank you. On Monday, July 31st, at approximately 06:19 hours, that's 6 in the morning for most of us, the Wethersfield Communications Center began receiving 911 calls reporting a structure fire on Laconia Road. Initial reports indicated a kitchen fire with a non-ambulatory person unable to evacuate. Wethersfield Fire, Wethersfield Police, and Wethersfield EMS were concurrently dispatched to the scene. A follow-up call from passerby reported heavy smoke condition emanating from the home. Retired Wethersfield Fire Department Lieutenant Tom Lawton, who lives very close by, entered the home to find a heavy smoke condition, which was now banked down to about knee level, located the victim, who was in a hospital bed in the front room of the house. He was immediately joined in the house by arriving police officers Jason Nunez and Mark Wildman, who began the process of removal of the victim. They were joined by firefighter Chris Hock, who assisted in carrying the victim from the hospital bed and evacuating towards the front door, where they were joined by firefighter Rob Sharkovich Sr. A joint effort of all of them brought the victim to the front lawn and started initial emergency medical assistance. At that time, medical assistance was turned over to Wethersfield EMS and Aetna ambulance personnel, who prepped the victim for transport to a local hospital. The fire was extinguished subsequently by subsequent arriving firefighters. Many occupants of the home and the initial firefighters and police officers were assessed by other EMS on the scene. In total, 7 people were transported to a local hospital for further evaluation. I applaud the efforts of the first arriving firefighters and police officers who performed as a team and successfully removed the victim under extremely hazardous conditions. Please share a round of applause for these professionals.
Ken, where's the gold keys?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Sharky.
And here's my gold key.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Run for.
You're running for
Please do.
Thank you, Chief. Just another round of applause for not only these fine folks, but everybody standing up here tonight. It goes to show you never know when you're called upon, and if you are a retired lieutenant like Tom Lawton, you still have the service of the volunteer fire department in your blood. And what was it, 6:20 in the morning, 6:19 in the morning? Glad to know you're up that early, Tom. And thank you for, you probably didn't even take the call, you just, you knew something was up in the neighborhood and you jumped to service. So we appreciate that. We appreciate the efforts of the volunteer fire department. We also appreciate the efforts of the police department and the EMS. You know, the entire town owes a debt of gratitude for all you folks that, when you're called, you come first thing, and we appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, sure. Moving on to the agenda, we do have 2 periods of public comment. The first one is right now, as everybody knows. Judy, I see your hand. Both of these are limited to 5 minutes. Please state your name and address. And if you want, you can go right into your public comment and then sign. So
Oh, we have to
you don't have to
sign.
sign right now. You can sign
Okay,
right when you're
okay, good.
wrapped up, Judy.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow. I'm
Yep.
grateful
We'll give
every
you
day.
20 seconds or 30 seconds.
Okay, all right.
I texted him afterwards. I wanted to give him a call because I heard it was him who did it.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Okay, Judy.
My name is Judy Keene, 126 Broad Street, and I'm president of the Richard M. Keene Foundation. I'm here again tonight to encourage the town council to revisit the decision not to distribute the ARPA funds that were intended for nonprofits in the community. I'd like to let you know how these funds would impact the Keene Foundation after-school enrichment program. Should I wait another minute?
Oh, we're listening. We've got you.
Some can hear, some can't, yeah. That's okay, I'm happy to let them go. Okay. Last spring, we had a record enrollment in our programs. This would be the after-school enrichment programs that the Keene Foundation provides. We had over 1,776 enrollments last year. This year, registration opened on August 30th at 8 a.m., and within minutes, we had 600 students enrolled in programs. So that's how important it is to the kids in town. We've been running the Keene on Kids After School program in partnership with the Wethersfield Park and Recreation. I can't fail to recognize Kathy and her department for all that they do to enroll the kids, and the Wethersfield School District for the past 8 years. We have been delivering engaging enrichment programs to all of Wethersfield's elementary school population. In addition, last year, we had kindergarten through grade 6 dynamic, fun, and educational hands-on learning programs. This is the one where science comes into the community, where children learn, in addition to their curriculum, daily curriculum, more about engineering, biology, nutrition, physics, and more. The teachers love the program, and the kids absolutely love them. Our money eventually will run out, and I'm fearful of the day when I have to tell parents that we can no longer sponsor these programs. We are one of the only school systems, maybe in Connecticut, but definitely in this area, that has after-school programs. They're not free. Parents are asked to pay $10 per program or per class, but we also give scholarships to students in need. Our donations are down, and corporate donations are down, and our fundraisers just are not bringing in the same amount of money that they have in the past. And our programs now are getting pricier and pricier as we go along. You may have read that we did receive an ARPA grant from the state of Connecticut for $300,000, which is wonderful. However, it's not just a gift. We had to create new and engaging programs for the kids that are already in the programs. We had to make sure that it was not the same old, same old. So we've spent a lot of money to enhance our programs and to create new programs. When the ARPA money runs out, that's it. We may have to revert back to earlier versions of our programs because we won't have that excess money. So I'm asking the council to please consider the Keene Foundation for a grant under that ARPA funds that the Town of Wethersfield received. I would love it all, but I'm not going to get greedy. There are lots of nonprofits in the community that need it as well. But anything would help, and I encourage you to please vote to release those funds. Also, next week, on September 11th, we're going to be having an open house at the Sports Center, and I printed this the wrong way, so you missed the best of the publication. On the bottom, it says pizza. So this is an invitation to all the students in our after-school programs, and I believe you were also invited as well, to come and just see what the kids are learning in these after-school programs. Some of our vendors will be there and showing how they present to the children. So please come and have a piece of pizza. Thank you. You'll go. Good.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just don't engage in a fun. Hey, Judy? Yes. Councilman O'Connor has just one.
Okay.
Judy, have you ever provided a financial statement to the town so they have an idea of where you are financially, like what's coming in, what's going out?
No, I don't think we have officially. We're always on the edge. We are always just making it, so.
That helps.
Okay,
I think
I'd be
if
happy
everyone
to talk to
saw-
our treasurers about releasing that information. You know, definitely the $300,000 helps, but when it's done, it's done,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that the novelty of Wethersfield, Little Wethersfield, being the only town in the area that provides this program for kids after school is great.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, thank you. And thank you for all your past support. You know, it's only through the community that we can do any of this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody else looking to speak? Jim?
Jim Woodworth, 33 Mill Street, 5H. I want to first, putting on my Great Meadows Conservation Trust hat, invite you all to join the Great Meadows Conservation Trust on Saturday morning, September 23rd, at the Cove from 9 to whenever, cleaning up trash. The Source to Sea cleanup is in its 20-something year now, and every year there seems to be a new supply for some reason. But you know, it's better than it used to be. So we've made some progress, I think, somehow. But we'll be out going around under the highway, along the river. We'll be going across to the edge of the highway, and I'll be driving a caravan around past the South Pump Station to the backside. I call it the dark side of the Cove, and I didn't make it last year. So I'm sure there's a pretty good accumulation. Although that flood, I think, cleaned stuff out instead of bringing stuff in. I'm not sure. At the same time, at the green, of course, is the Corn Fest, and that starts at 10 and goes to 4. So come to our cleanup, then get cleaned up, and then come to the Corn Fest and enjoy the products of the agricultural products But also, the Great Meadows Trust will have a table with activities for kids. So stop by and say hello, and we'll have maps of particularly our wood parcel with a little trail map, and enjoy that. I also want to, switching gears, make a comment on some of the comments that were made at the last town council meeting, in which it was alleged that the soil at the Keisha farm, the farm soil, was polluted. Or maybe we don't know what was there. But there was an environmental study done. Environmental due diligence is always done before property changes hands, whether it's the Great Meadows Trust buying a piece or whether it's the town. And although there was some debris and so forth and some petroleum products around where the machinery was, the rest of the place, and they test, 27 different spots for herbicides and pesticides and so forth. Nothing was detected above safe levels for residential, let alone for anything else. And I just feel that the Keisha family were stewards of this property for 100 years, farming on it all these years. And to say that it's so polluted and going into that song and dance about, I would eat vegetables from here, that's just wrong. Somehow making a statement like that and inviting the Ritchie League people to come here. When I was at Wethersfield Junior High, George D. Ritchie was the assistant principal in charge of discipline. He wouldn't have put up with those kind of shenanigans, I'm pretty sure. But it's just a bad example to make a statement that's untrue. I did email you and ask for the support. I got nothing. So I assume you don't have any support for that. You just made it up. And I think it's just unfortunate. Councilman Carbone, you are running again, and you're the one person here who has we're unaware of this study, but all the rest of you guys some of you have real estate backgrounds and you've been around forever, and that study's there and you could read it. But it gives it a clean bill of health, and the transition normally from conventional farming to organic farming is 3 years is a minimum, and it hasn't been farmed for years. These tests were done 2019, 4 or 5 years ago, and so things have even improved since then. So I just say that good things are possible at the Keisha farm in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I noticed in your agenda tonight you were going to be talking about some kind of old academy roof replacement and cupola restoration. Is this the same building that we only get $100 a year from, the Wethersfield Historic Society, and we're now going to be talking about putting state taxpayer money into it to the tune of like $270,000? This is not, as a state, I pay state taxes, I pay federal taxes, and I pay town taxes. So I'm an all-around taxpayer. And I resent the fact that deals have been made back in 2007, 2008 by people who sat on the council and didn't take into any account the repairs and maintenance that are going to be required on these buildings over the time of those leases. And I believe the leases were 50 years long. And I'm just, now you're going to flush the work out on the state taxpayer, not the town taxpayer, but the state. And most of us, even people that get Social Security and retirement pay, that kind of stuff, they pay taxes. All around they pay taxes. And then for putting this kind of money, $200,000, a total of $270,000 on the roof and what other repairs there are, that's a tremendous amount of money, and we get $100 a year from the Wethersfield Historic Society. And we can thank Mr. Forrest down the end, who was a member of that town council back then. Yep, he's garnered a heck of a lot of votes over the years from people at the Wethersfield Historic Society. Think about it. Those people that are members, they don't even have to work to keep their organization going, to make sure they pay their rent, pay their water bill, pay their electric bill, pay their oil bill, pay the maintenance on the buildings that they're using. They don't have to worry about it. Everybody else pays for it. And then we go on. We're going to have a State Historic Preservation Office for pre-development grant application for what? The Kinney Center? Another big hole in the ground that we keep throwing money into? And now we're going to be talking about, let's get some state money to do some kind of studies. Haven't there been enough studies done, Mayor? Good grief. When was the last time you did one? Do we know about that? I can't believe you haven't, because the towns are always right up front with buildings getting money. And again, who pays for it? The state taxpayers. And nobody has anything to say about it except for those who garner votes over the years for the goodies that they gave people in this town. You have more going on here that, we're talking about roof maintenance on leaks, maintenance on different kinds of things on the roofs of our buildings. I remember attending town council meetings in the building next door. I think you call it the middle school. And they were doing it back then. I mean, don't we trust and have liable people working for us who can keep an eye on our roofs instead of hiring somebody to keep the tabs on it? And then when it takes time, when the time comes along to have a repair job done, it's way up there. It's not a negotiated thing. They got their rates. They're in bed with the town. And we, the citizens, have to pay for all of this. And we have people on hand that should be doing this kind of work. So I would vote no on this, Mayor. I would go back and look at the disaster that we have now. We talked about the Little Red Schoolhouse. That's another big sucking on the taxpayer. We get nothing from you, town council, on that. We got the Wethersfield Historic Society, who runs our Kinney Center, who we only get $100 a year from them. And we pay everything outside. We pay their electric, water, oil, and gas. And Mr. Forrest, you must be a hero with those people.
Mr. Young,
because
your 5 minutes
who
are up.
else gains from it? The two parties gain from it. That's who it is. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Anybody else to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to council reports, please. Any reports from any? It's been a quiet couple weeks. I will say one thing, it's council report. Kate Forcier from the Housing Authority became a grandmother in late August, August 31st, so I congratulated her on an August birthday like mine. So, but that's pretty much the only thing that's come out of the Housing Authority in the last couple days. Nothing else to report? Okay. On to council comments. Councilman Pentelow.
Just a quick one. I wanted to make everybody aware that September 18th, we're actually, the training for anti-human trafficking that I've been talking about here a few times, we're actually in conjunction with Erica. Thank you very much for all your work. And the police chief. It starts September 18th. I think we still have spots open, right? We do, yeah. Yeah, we still have some spots left open, so I would encourage anybody who wants to come. It is intense, so I get it. It's 6 days. It's 40 hours. So it's definitely in-depth, but I think it's a step in the right direction to combat some of the issues that they're having on the Berlin Turnpike. So September 18th to the 23rd.
So what's the program, Pat?
Program is everything. I actually have their curriculum. It's everything from breaking down the physical enterprises of whether it's labor trafficking, sex trafficking, how to combat it, the aftercare for the victims, because that's actually the most overlooked area of sex trafficking, especially when it comes to children. It's one thing to rescue them and get them out of the situation, but all the counseling, the aftercare associated with helping them lead normal lives afterwards. So it breaks down it's one of the most comprehensive programs that I've seen. And that's why I recommended that we do a training here in Wethersfield, given some of the reports of activity that we saw on the Berlin Turnpike, as well as the South Sea Highway. So.
Thanks.
Thanks for your involvement with that, Pat. It's important work.
Pat, just to follow up, have you reached out to like the motel owners?
We actually, if you mind, Erica, I could take it. No. No, if you want. But yeah, I did speak to Erica about regarding if we were going to reach out to them, and I think the initial intent, and you could correct me, is we wanted some of our staff trained in-house, so it's almost like a train-the-trainer exercise. That's the kind of the purpose of this, is they work with law enforcement and concerned citizens that really want to get involved in it. So that was kind of what we were discussing, is somebody from Erica's office. I think you have, what, 3?
We have 3 going, yeah.
Yep, 3 going, and I think nine of our,
I believe it's up to 11 officers.
yeah, 11 officers,
PD
and then
staff.
I think Newington has some.
Enfield.
Enfield, a lot of departments are signing up for it as well. So it's nice to host it right in Wethersfield.
And where is it again?
The community center.
Okay.
I think it starts at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday, the 18th. So if you have a week free.
Exactly. Stay right there. Stay where you
Yeah, so the goal will be for us to
There.
train other agencies, other buildings, motels, hotels in the community once we are trained ourselves, and
Gotcha.
kind of spread it through the community.
It's amazing. I just wanted to encourage the community to donate to the Wethersfield Food Bank, because their stores are critically low, and I know they're running a food drive. So I was speaking with you earlier, and you're saying not only is it perishables, but you'll take anything. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that real quick.
Sure, yes. We're definitely in need of donations at the Wethersfield Food Bank. So we do have refrigeration freezer space, so we can take perishable items. We encourage non-perishable items, but we also give out a lot of toiletries and personal hygiene products, which is something that a lot of benefits, entitlement benefits, do not cover. We also have what we call our mini little diaper bank, and for senior citizens as well as for babies. So those also do not get covered by a lot of entitlement benefits, so those are definitely in need as well.
And where do they bring those? Right here to the town hall?
Yep.
First floor?
Lower level.
Lower level.
Yep, you can bring them over to social services,
Okay,
which is
awesome.
located in the lower level. They can actually pull up in front of the building, call our main number, and we'll actually come out and grab it. So they don't even have to get out of their car.
So easy drive-through service.
Yes.
That's great. Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I think you're off the hot seat for now.
Thank you for allowing that. It was
Mm-hmm.
easier.
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind folks that on Wednesday, September 20th, we have the Salute to Business dinner at the River, and we have some great folks that we're recognizing, groups that we're recognizing, including the fire department, including the library, but I want to say, and also including Judy Keene for all the tremendous work she does in our community. Is getting recognized with the Distinguished Betty Rosani Award. Congratulations, Judy, and I hope all the council can get there, and folks, members of the public, again, September 20th, Wednesday, at the river. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilman O'Connor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to respond to the member of the public who came up here and singled me out, I would like to respond. I did receive an email. It was addressed to me with copies to Mayor Rell, Manager Presley, and council members. But when I actually looked at the copies, who else was copied on? Half the DTC was copied on that email as well. So I will not respond to an email where members of the opposite political party are being copied, because that tells me this is more about politics than actually progress, and so I won't play that game. Second, in the email, there was a reference to wanting information on artificial turf. I would suggest that you do as I did and everybody else has done, is feel free to use Google and look for those turf. I can't give you the name of the manufacturer because we don't have a manufacturer, because we haven't actually ordered any turf yet. But there are manufacturers out there that provide PFAS-free and non-toxic material, and feel free to evaluate those, and there are tons of evaluations that are also available. Also, in reference to the contamination of the farm soil, at no point did anyone say Keisha people contaminated the farm. What was stated was, I have no idea what's been done on that farm field over the last 4 to 5 years, which was after the last study was done. So just to reiterate, I wouldn't eat anything off of that field without having that study, a recent study done to tell me, and a detailed, deep study done. That's me personally. That's not a lie. That's not creating some hyperbole. I just wouldn't do it, period, until I knew that. We've been talking, numerous people come up here and say about all the farming that's been going on there right now. Well, I don't know what they're using. I don't know what they're planting. I don't know what pesticides they're using. I think it's a fair assessment and a fair ask to say, well, then someone should do a sample study on what's been used since that last study was done. I don't think that's a large ask, and I don't think there's anything wrong with asking that and stating whether or not you would eat food off of that soil or not. I personally wouldn't until I saw that updated study, and that's what was stated. We can twist it and play all the other games with it because it's fun to fight over it, but that's the reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the Old Wethersfield Shopkeepers Association, Historic Wethersfield, for, I can't remember if this is the 3rd or 4th year, but Porch Fest, for those that went on August 26th, was a huge success. Not only did it garner thousands of people in Old Wethersfield, but it gave great publicity for Old Wethersfield, for the restaurants, for the shops, for the crafts, obviously for those that played, and the food. I think I did all three. I shopped, I ate, and I drank there. But I had my kids with me, so it was not adult beverages. But it was a great time had by a lot of people. Kudos to the town of Wethersfield for what we provided. I know there was a lot of meetings. I believe Joya was in on a lot of those. Fred, you were as well. The police department, the fire department, coordinating all the road closures. The fire department had to reroute for any emergencies down there because the firehouse obviously was closed off at Main Street. But for those that missed it, don't worry. Next month, Scarecrows on Main starts back up again. Get your submissions in. I think it's September 23rd, somewhere around there. Not the end of September, but midway through September. So if you do want to participate, if the public wants to participate, if there's any groups that want to participate, the Keene Foundation wants to participate, get your submissions into Historic Wethersfield or the Old Wethersfield Shopkeepers Association for that. Again, it's a great success. Publicity for Old Wethersfield for what we do as a town, and the cohesiveness of not only all of Wethersfield, but more importantly, Old Wethersfield and those that run businesses down there and restaurants. It's a great opportunity to get folks in on the weekends and kind of the last fall days into winter is always a good time. Couple things I just want to bring up to the town manager. I don't know if you guys saw the emails that we'd received earlier, something we've talked about, and I know former Mayor Bello talked about it, speeding on Hartford Avenue. Those of us on Broad Street know about it. Once you repave, people tend to take advantage of the fresh pavement for excessive speed. If we could work with the police department and Chief Medina on ways, I know Derek and the team from engineering had shortened the width of narrowed the width of the roadways and included a bike pedestrian path, but if that is something that we could look into, I know a resident on Hartford Ave had concerns about that. And there was a couple concerns also about, and then we've seen it before, and I don't know if Sally is in the audience, but if we could talk to physical services about the roadways entering into and out of the 1860 reservoir. I know that's been a concern. There's been a couple times flooding and rain have washed out potholes. People go back in there. And I know the town has graded it a number of times in the past. I think it was on the schedule to be graded, and because of the storms, we put it off. But now, hopefully with those behind us and fall weather coming, that we could get some staff in there to do it. And then just two more. If you guys recall, and maybe Councilman Forrest recalls, Linda Case came into town hall or town council meeting 2 meetings ago to talk about the oak tree that was on Park Avenue. I met with her shortly thereafter. We talked about a number of things, and I know this is something you've worked on with Derek Greger, sign inventory, and I think you had a meeting last week with some interested folks in that. I would like to set up a meeting with Linda and you to discuss sign inventory, canopy, preserving some trees that can be preserved, and then also, following up on some things that we've talked about, funding for a tree reserve for replacement of trees. And then finally, what we thought was an issue that had kind of gone down a little bit has come back up. This is that dumpster behind Price Right. Kudos to the Central Connecticut Health District. Every time that there's an issue, they send somebody to look at it, but it just seems to be, the property owners. I think the last time was that the lock had broke on the grease trap, but birds are still getting in there, spilling is still occurring, the lid is still coming off. So if Charles Morrison or somebody from town staff can talk to the respective owners of the dumpsters in question, I know it's an issue for those that live in the area, if we can address those. So just a couple things for the town manager to do and add to your list.
Most of
Turn
those
it over
were
to you.
I think most of those were on my list, so that's good. I just want to echo the salute to business. Joy, Zach, and I have been meeting with some of the soon-to-be recipients of recognition on the business side of things, and really it's been interesting to sit with them and hear about their businesses and how they started and why they're still here in Wethersfield. So I think everyone's in for a treat if they attend that, and obviously all the great things that Judy's done. I do want to mention, you mentioned the Porch Fest mayor and all the work the staff did. I'll say that Kathy Bagley was the organizer on the staff side and coordinated all that, so thank you to her as well. But that was a great event for everyone, and heard lots of very positive feedback on that event overall. I want to note too that you all approved the additional mason in the budget this year. And just to give a unofficial update, I will be having physical services give you a very specific update on all the projects that have been achieved. But of note, that web stair, well, it was one of the things that we took off of the CNEF list, and that has been completed in time for the school year. There's also been multiple sidewalks that have been repaired, catch basins on the road projects that Derek's been working on. They've been pretty much going both masons nonstop, and been a lot of positive feedback that we've been getting. And in addition to that, just physical services staff in general, I would say that this year I've received a lot less complaints with tall grass, which is actually surprising on our fields and things, which is surprising because we've had
Record rain.
the grass has been crazy this year. It's been impossible to keep up with. So kudos to that staff for staying up with that, doing the best they can to get out there and getting that done, because it was a very difficult summer. We're still in it, but it's been a real challenge on keeping the weeds down and keeping the grass mowed, and I think they've done a great job with that this year. And that will complete my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Sue, any comments from the town clerk's office?
The office is just getting ready for the upcoming election, and we'll be able to order the ballots once the registrars have completed the lottery to have the order of the candidates, and that's going to be done on September 12th at 11 o'clock, I believe, right here in the chambers. And then we'll be ordering the ballots, and absentee ballots will be able to be issued starting on October 6th.
Thank you. Hearing no further, nobody else wants to comment on anything? Okay, close it off. We'll move down to item I, bids. This is the old Academy roof replacement. I see Joya coming up. I believe Joya and our town manager have worked together on this. I'll turn it over to you, Joya.
Okay, good evening. I've been working with Town Manager Fred Presley and Sally Katz on this project. And we came to the CIP meetings earlier this year, and $200,000 was allocated to use for matching funds for a grant to rehab the building. Since that time, we've gone to get bids, and in the meantime, the Historic Restoration Fund grant dollars have been exhausted. So they no longer have money to do the match. As we were looking at the project, we realized the condition of the roof just is dire. It really needs to be replaced. And so we're asking if the funds that were allocated for the matching grant could be put toward the actual replacement of the roof, which the roof only would come out to $149,736, so approximately $150. Looking at the cupola, the bid came in at $120,000. I've learned since I did this that we did go out for multiple bids through the Omnia Buying Collective. However, only one company submitted a bid. We could try to separate the projects. I talked to Sally, who couldn't be here this evening, but we could separate the projects, do the roof, and then try to go out and bid again just for the cupola restoration, and see if we can get other companies interested or get other bids other than the 120 to do a compare.
And if I can weigh in there, I think one of the issues we did get multiple roof bids, obviously, and that's the price we got, was the low bid.
Right.
But we only got the single cupola bid. Tremco, that kind of led this process, believes that the reason is that most of the people on that list are roofing companies, and the one that actually bid on this is a carpenter. But obviously, they're not necessarily restoration specialists, and that if we went out to bid, we believe we could get more competitive bids. So we're actually recommending now, based upon the information, that we do separate these out and put the cupola out to bid, and go out, use the state's list of restoration-specific companies that do this type of work. In the meantime, what we would do is we would, as part of the roof job, take the cupola down and store it. It will not be indefinitely like the bell. The idea is that it's going to be, as soon as we get the bids back, we'll bring those immediately back to the council here. I think, we can probably assume it's probably not going to go up higher than it is right now. It seems really high to me. I think everybody that looked at it was, I know I was kind of shocked to see the price of the cupola versus the roof. Now the company that did bid said there's a lot of work to this. They have to do it in kind. It's a lot of specialized carpentry work that's involved with this, but I do think it's prudent to try to get additional bids from companies that specialize in this type of work. So for the motion tonight, if the council sees fit to do so, to appropriate the $149,736 of the money that was set aside for the match for the roof itself, and we'll come back to you at a later date once we have additional quotes for the cupola.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
A couple questions, and I'm not sure if Joya would have the answers or Fred, but my recollection was that we looked at doing this roof several years ago, 3 or 4 years, I think, around the time we did the firehouse roof. And it was my understanding that we needed to do an engineering study to determine the structural integrity of the roof, and the chimneys were on there, and the cupola. And I had thought that money was allocated for that in CIP. Does anybody know if that was ever done? Or, it was explained to me that we would have to do that engineering work before we could even go out to bid. So I'm assuming that was done, and was there money for that?
I don't know specifically. I know that Tremco reviewed the roof, went through, examined the entire structure, and felt it was prudent to move forward with the bids, and all the bidders came through and walked through as well. So I don't think there's a structural issue with the roof itself. They did separate out the chimney. It is not part of this. It would be part of the next item down. You'll see the State Preservation Office grant that we're applying for. That would be part of the overall house restoration. The chimney would have been a lot more, and there are structural issues with that, I understand, and that's why they wanted to do this further investigation on that prior to moving forward.
Can we move the historic preservation part of this off the consent agenda? Because it's kind of lumped together. I don't really understand what the whole restoration project is.
Anybody can. Yes, we can talk about it.
I want to get the roof done. I'm not thrilled with the price on the roof, but is that Omnia Group, is that part of a service that Tremco provides? Is that, who did that go out to bid?
It goes out to a number of companies that are approved. It's kind of like a state bidding
Consortium?
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, consortium, they're all approved. And from what Mike had told me, Mike from Tremco told me, 8 or 9 companies came to look at this and bid on it. And this was the lowest one. It could be, there is damage, and I don't know the specifics. I didn't get a detailed report, but there is damage because there is water leaking in on the second floor. We know it's damaging the ceiling on the interior of the second floor. It's visible, just to us going up there. So
do we know who developed the bid spec? I mean, you had to tell the people what.
Tremco did it. Yeah,
did that?
yeah.
Okay. We have that available?
I can probably get it. Yeah.
Okay. It seems, I recall when we did the firehouse roof, also wood shingle roof, the quote we got for that was really quite reasonable for the size of the roof. And I remember suggesting at the time, why don't we do the academy roof at the same time with the same contractor? And for whatever reason, I don't believe that was who bid this one, so.
Yeah.
Seems high to me, just for the roof. Leave it to the experts.
I'm not an expert in this.
It's probably pre-COVID prices. Right?
Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So by separating these bids, there's no need for the $70,000 from ARPA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, but I agree with the deputy mayor, though, that seems like a very expensive roof. I reel it with, it's the old roof, so I know there's a cost associated with that, but again, I'm not an expert on it, so I don't know if you go out to bid again, does it come down or go up, I don't know, so.
Joya, do you know how many people bid the roof?
You said
8 or 9, I was told.
Okay, thank you.
And this was the lowest out of 8 or 9?
Apparently, yeah, this that was presented to you is the compilation of the lowest bids. Yep.
Does that include any work that may be done if they find leakage when they're pulling off the old and putting the new on?
Well, that's what they've already assessed, to my understanding.
And so
Because
that's
they
factored
went
in.
on the roof and they went inside, and so it wasn't just a,
So they
you know,
can't at the
street
last
view.
minute say, oh, we just found all this and now it's going to cost more?
well, I'm not going to promise that.
Be nice to know. Trying to look to see. That was done in like 2020. I think they finally finished the firehouse roof. Couple of years. Well, are you, I guess, any other comments on this? Councilman Forrest?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the town manager. If we were to move on today, the 149 number, would the motion look like motion to approve allocation of the new 149 number appropriated to the Capital Improvement Project Fund for Economic Development, grant matching funds, and then strike and for the appropriation of an additional $70,000 from ARPA funds?
Exactly.
But then keep for completion of the required roofing projects of the old academy?
Yes.
Okay. Just a little bit of general perspective. I remember when we were doing a similar roof for the Standish House. It was tremendous. This was pre-COVID, and I feel like $200,000 or $300,000 would not have been, would have been like the number we approved, and having like a little bit of the sticker shock of a cedar roof in Old Wethersfield on a restoration project. So the 149 post-COVID is not a shocker to me. It's not like something that shocks the conscience for this type of a roof. This roof's probably a little bit smaller, but it's a different time frame slightly, right? But that type of restoration work with those old materials is just very costly. So I'm comfortable with the 8, 9 bids. I'm a little less comfortable with the 1 bid on the cupola for all the obvious reasons as previously stated. And just to get it on the table, we can vote it yea or nay. I'm going to move to approve the allocation of $149,736 appropriated to the Capital Improvement Project CIP Fund for Economic Development Grant Matching Funds for completion of required roofing improvements to the old Academy building owned by the Town of Wethersfield located at 150 Main Street.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
Question for Councilor Forrest. Would you have an idea of the actual year that the Standish House roof was done? You think it's like 10 years?
Yeah, I'm going to say somewhere between like 2010, 2014. I don't think it was before 2010 is my gut, but it wasn't like in the last 5 or 6 years either.
Not for
And it
this
was-
item, but for other items later on tonight, so just
That's
curious.
Yeah, generally speaking, but obviously I don't have the numbers right here. But I remember being in the thousands for, hundreds of thousands for a roof
Yeah.
and thinking, oh my lord. But I think that was competitively bid then too, and sometimes this type of detailed work with these types of materials and this type of workmanship is just very expensive.
I could just add, we have a wood roof, and our house is 1764, so it's probably around the same time. And I think the cost difference is probably the difference between putting a wood roof on a new building, like the fire station, versus putting it on an old historic home, where you're gonna have to add the structure to the bottom of it. That is gonna be what the roof is, whereas I think the roof of the fire department is already there, and you're putting the shakes on top of whatever you already have there. I think that's probably the difference.
Could be.
Further comments? Seeing none? Motion's before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Mm-hmm. So, Joya or Fred, do you know if the cupola is original to the building, and do we need it?
Great question.
I don't, I do not know if it's original.
Historic District Commission would insist that it
Yeah.
be replaced like for like.
In kind, yeah.
And so,
It has to be replaced or
I think it
repaired.
was original too.
Yeah.
and we think it's original to the building?
It really, I think the Historic District Commission starts at like 1960 or something like that, so.
I think it,
Yeah, it was
Once-
certainly there prior to.
Okay.
If it's, if it was then, that's what they're expecting to see, so.
Thank you.
I actually have a follow-up question to that. I know through the historic district, they have, I'm learning about materials, so they have newer materials that mimic natural wood products. They don't have the sheen, and they're being allowed in, the historic district. Is that
Okay.
something we could look into too, instead of having it be just wood, so we don't have to replace it as often, or maybe it would last forever?
I know the I spoke with Kim, the staff liaison for HDC, and she told me if we replace like for like, we don't have to go to HDC.
She would just have to approve the
So that's what we
material.
asked for.
Okay.
We didn't ask for the different materials, so I don't know the cost difference.
Just thinking,
Yeah.
that's something that might last a little bit longer.
Yeah. Are you going to talk about
I-
the Stillman building?
I can say that we fought
gonna
that
be
battle, and it's not going to happen.
There's new materials out there.
No,
Okay.
it's not going to happen.
I'll reach out to Kim, bye.
Okay.
Yeah. Got
I
it.
said, it's going to be a lot more costly, and I was told the cost is not our concern. So it has to be like for like, especially on an old structure like that. We couldn't get it done on a firehouse that was built in '74. So, 1970.
You do need to put the numbers before.
Yeah.
All right.
Just to follow up, for those who've ever been from the Legislative Office Building to the Capitol, Wethersfield does have a picture in the history as it has evolved from 1600s to present day. The old Academy is showcased in there in a black and white photo with the cupola and the bell in place. And just a little bit of brief history. It was built in 1804 with a final cost, including land, of $3,489.52.
1804, yeah, when they thought it was expensive then.
So
Information.
that may be a door to get replaced there. So, yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you,
Right.
Joya. Councilman
I
O'Connor,
just wanted
who may have been on the council back then.
I may have been. I just wanted to comment that I am pro cupola. And I didn't want Councilor Lesser to think I wasn't. I am totally pro cupola and pro field. So I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
I think it has lead paint on it.
Okay.
man.
Moving on to the consent agenda before us. There was a concern to bring one off, one, maybe two.
Objection 6, Mayor.
1, 2, and Trumco, 5.
Taking off.
Taking
one off?
Taking 1, 2, 5, and 6? Or just 5?
I'm
5
just
for
6.
me. I think.
Oh, 5?
Matt, did you have 6?
I did.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councilman Forrest. So just to reiterate, on the consent items, we will be looking at approving number 3. This is the Social and Youth Services Amplify grant, school maintenance van that we've talked about for a couple years in our budget meetings. If you guys read the report, the van is not usable in its current condition. And finally, number 7, approval of the minutes.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. Item J1, this is the Historic Preservation Grant for the, this is for the Old Academy, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. There's 2 of them, don't be confused with Old Academy first and then Keeney Memorial Center. And this is $20,000 as well. And Vlada is coming up.
Hi there, good evening. Surprised that it's not on the consent agenda anymore. My name is Vlada Shilkova. I'm the Capital Improvements Project Administrator. So this grant, along with the Keeney grant, they're both for the same thing but for different buildings. So each of them are for pre-development studies on the buildings. The particular deliverables that we would be receiving if we were able to submit for this grant opportunity would be a conditions assessment report, feasibility or adaptive reuse studies, structural soundness studies, and if funding allowed, which is judged by the space of the building, potentially even an architectural plans and specifications report, which would help us create new plans for the building, but chances are that last piece we would have to reapply for. So basically, these studies would allow us to understand other areas of the building that need structural repairs or attention, in addition to, I don't know if you know, the actual purpose of the old Academy building as it stands now. It's both the administrative offices for the Historical Society and also serves as storage for delicate documents. It's in no way in healthy shape to do that as it is now, due to those roof leaks, due to other issues with the windows. There's a lot of moisture in there. The documents are not safe as they stand now. So we really do need a study to help us guide decisions for how we want to attack meaningful, purposeful, and structural projects for both buildings. Any questions?
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you.
I'll go on that side first, and then.
I don't know.
I know you already have a question, I just figured open the floor up.
Can I go?
No, I don't think.
I think you said repurpose in there?
Reuse, adaptive reuse.
So what kind of ideas are
Yeah.
being kicked around for reuse of, can we talk about both items at the same time, or I mean?
Or I could
just do
speak to
one
Old
at a time?
Academy first, if that's helpful.
But, yeah, so for the Old Academy building,
Yeah, so
what
to
are we
better.
talking about doing with it that we're not doing now?
So potentially use the space better for the staff, be able to house the documents in a more appropriate way, so potentially be able to have temperature-controlled storage to better understand where that would be. ADA compliance in that building is not up to code. There's really no way to get up to the second floor without using the staircase or the escape way through the back, what's that structural soundness looking like? So adaptive reuse might look at putting in an elevator into that building, adapting the bathrooms to be more handicapped accessible, speaking to storage in different spaces. I don't know if you've walked in there, but in the back there are safes. Their true use is just to kind of house documents and keep them safe there, I guess, but there's no temperature control, so they're still not truly being preserved. To look at how that would look like. Also, the space upstairs really isn't used efficiently at this time, so maybe to look at how that space could be better used. And the building's previous uses, it used to be a gathering space, meeting space, and served a lot of other purposes. So to see if maybe we could tap into some of that. There's a lot of other purposes that we could look at for the spaces, maybe better spaces for the public to come in and utilize resources that are housed in there.
That was my next question. So is the building open to the public right now?
It is currently. So you, myself, or any other member of the public could walk in there and ask for help locating records on predominant families in town, looking up records, agricultural records, photos from different times, awards, things of the like. There's a little treasure chests everywhere in the building.
And this is a matching grant, right?
It is a matching grant.
So it's basically $10,000.
So it would be for 20. It goes up to $20,000 for the match. So the total grant use would be $40,000 going towards the studies.
That's all I had.
Well, actually, over here, anybody over here?
Sure. I'm going to move to approve submitting a pre-development study application to the State Historic Preservation Office Survey and Planning Grant.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry. So you sound like you have some pretty good ideas of how you would like to utilize this space. So I'm wondering, do we really need a study to show us how to utilize that space? If you already know what needs to be done, could we hire a contractor to come in and you give them the ideas, and they give you, okay, this is how much it's going to cost? Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around you spending $40,000 and getting people to tell you what you already know.
So I don't know these things. These are, again, as you said, thoughts. They're thoughts, opinions. I don't know how that space should be used. Maybe it's structurally not sound for housing some of these things how we want them. Maybe they would advise us to change locations based on different portions of the buildings and how we could renovate them. The study would also help us understand the costs of going through these projects. So you need to have costs to be able to really understand either a section of the project, structural integrity, or how you want to attack the project as a whole here, and we really don't have a place to start other than we have numbers for the roof right now, which is fantastic for the old academy, but there's so many other issues with that building that we're unaware of. I don't know of any study like this that has been done on that building, so we really don't know what we're walking into when we attack projects like that. So being at the state that we're in, we need to do these studies to be able to approach an architect. They need to have that information in hand to go forward with an actual project.
Do you have a company in mind? Did I not see it that's going to do these for you? Do you have a company?
No, there's a number of companies we could go to. I've heard VHB is great. I've heard other companies are great, but the way that the process really works with these type of grants is you submit the application, you receive then, if you're awarded, a nice list from SHPO, and they really work with you to figure out what you're trying to get done on the project and kind of help you figure out which companies might be best for you. You still go out to a bidding process, but they really help you steer your ship how to get to the projects that you want to get done, or maybe the uses you want to get done, or navigate you towards the studies that might be appropriate to help you find out those things.
So to create a master plan,
Yes,
so to speak. Okay.
exactly.
We know a lot about master plans.
Exactly. And then the thought is, once these studies are completed, we see where we are, because the studies do go by size of the building, so we kind of see where the building's at, how we navigate there, and we might even have some funding left over for the architectural studies. I've also been notified that once we do get to this point, there are other grant opportunities through SHPO that do not have a match that we could pivot these studies towards and get those architectural pieces. So this would really help us get to where we want to be with this building in Keeney.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could. If I could just add to that, that's a key part of this, is that SHPO requires a lot of this work to be done to even apply for the construction grants they do provide without a match. So by using this grant to get some of this done as part of that process, then it queues us up where we had all the information they need to accept our grant application.
And where's the money coming from for this?
State Historic Preservation Office.
Well, that's their $20,000. Are you asking about our match?
Yes.
CIP, I believe.
Yeah, we'd use CIP reserves more than likely, but that would come back to the council for approval if we were to get the grant.
So no money's going out ahead of time. Okay.
Further discussion? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
If we're talking about structural repairs and things of that nature, I can see moving forward with this. If we're talking about outfitting the interior of the building to suit the tenant, which is the Historical Society, I think the Historical Society, the nonprofit, should be kicking in the matching grants, or at least a portion of it. That's the way a typical lease operates with a commercial space. If you want to replace the carpeting, the tenant pays for the carpeting. You want to replace the ceiling and the lighting and add a bathroom, things like that, the tenant pays for that. And here we're investing up to $20,000 for design work that we're never going to recover from the tenant. So I have concerns about that.
I understand your concerns. I've heard comments in the past about the Lucky Lou's and that tenant and what, the town receives for the Standish House property. And we heard earlier tonight about the Wethersfield Historical Society, which we'll get to at the next item. But, just looking at the old Academy building, for anybody, who's visited Old Wethersfield, it is a town property. I understand that, there is a tenant in it, but, we are the owner of the property, and I don't have any records of the last time it was worked on, or, I think there's still air conditioning units that are not working, sticking out the back. The property owner who owns the property behind it cleared some property back there. I think that because there's a lot of development and redevelopment and remodeling of homes and businesses in that area, that because the old Academy, it being a town building, that it may look that it is our responsibility to provide the upkeep for that building. Obviously, a roof, a cupola, and I think when the bell came down, I just got on council, and I've been talking to every town manager since to put the bell back, but it was always the cupola that was the issue. So now, obviously, we're getting towards there with the previous, but I think just if we can do, some fixes as we go along, we may be able to bring that old academy back to its, original state, which a lot of folks are doing on their own dime in that area. So I think being the stewards of the property at the Town of Wethersfield, that I think we owe it a service to the residents and the taxpayers, that if we are going to have property that we own, that we should take care of them. Just my 2 cents.
And as I said, I'm not talking about structural things. I think the landowner, the property owner is responsible for making sure the roof is sound, making sure the chimney's not going to fall over, or the cupola, those kind of things. But when you start talking about reconfiguring the inside or doing enhancements, then I think it should shift the other way. So I understand your comments.
Yeah, I agree from the inside perspective that, if there are things, but I don't know what the future holds for what we as a town may be doing inside that building. I mean, is there?
So we could gear the studies away from current tenant and just say, we're looking to improve the building. Can we have a better understanding of how to do that? It would also be nice to understand how to temperature control maybe this area, or maybe let's advise the tenant on how to do that otherwise, or look into other options of doing that outside of these reports. But the overall goal is to maintain the building and the structural integrity of that building, and we really don't know where it is right now. And I think that's the concern here, that we need to complete these studies to truly understand that, to be able to gear the project of securing that structure. It does not seem to be in a healthy space now. I was recently in there, and there are pieces of the ceiling on the second floor, but 2 weeks ago, so it's not doing well.
Sounds like a patient.
Right.
Okay, any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. You'll stay for the second one?
Stay for the second
Keeney
one.
Center?
Yep, so Keeney Center, same type of scenario here, $20,000 matching grant for a $40,000 study. Since this is a larger building, the proportion of these studies will just go to structural condition assessment rather than feasibility and reuse. If we can look at feasibility, that's great, but this is a much larger space, so getting this report will be the most helpful in this situation, to be able, again, to understand the structural integrity and soundness of the building, to be able to gear those projects forward and where we need them, and to also understand costs and apply for grants.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So in this case, the town of Wethersfield rehabbed that structure. So we should have plenty of information about what was done to it, heating systems, the cooling systems, all the work that's been done, I don't know how many years ago, 20-something years ago.
Is this post-fire or just before the?
No, I mean,
lightning?
No, the lightning was just a minor, that was just.
You're making my case.
The lightning was.
It's a mere flesh wound.
Yeah, it was a flesh wound. I mean, it used to be a school, right?
Yeah.
The school and the town rehabbed it. It made it into a, very attractive space. So I don't think we should have to go back to, like, the Academy building. Granted, you don't have any information about it. The Keeney building, we should have drawings and all kinds of history on what was done to it and what should have already been done. So
Okay.
I don't know that it's the same situation.
All right. I'm not aware of the studies that were completed prior. I can look into those and see where those are, but if you've walked through, I think there are definitely repairs that can be made. The elevator, again, there has issues as well that we need to better understand. That's on its last leg also. I don't know the state of the roof. I don't know when that was looked at last, and I have walked through in the basement, seen the heaters, and they're not in good shape either. There's truly duct tape on those ducts, so I do believe we need to understand that situation better as well to move forward. That's not something I can speak to. I don't have the knowledge, so I would need those reports myself.
Just one thing I do want to say, and thank you for those comments, the ductwork and, you know, some of the heating systems. It is an old building. Just in the justification, the Keeney Memorial Center building is in poor condition. I don't know if there's a grading of good, fair, or poor. If I would put I don't want the residents' uneasiness to, if that's even proper grammar, to go ahead of, you know, the work that we've done to ensure the safety of that building. You know, we do maintain it. I believe Tremco has probably been looking at the roof. It's a slate roof. And to the Deputy Mayor's point, you know, the town did take it over. There was extensive work after the fire. I know that did damage a lot, but, and, you know, if there was any structural concerns then or anything, the building is solid, safe, and secure. There may be some mechanical issues that need to be addressed, but for the most part, you know, I don't want the public to think that it's in dire need, or, you know, we're going to be closing it next month because of any structural concerns. So, any further comments on this item for the $20,000 match for now the Keeney Center? Okay, I'll put a motion out there. Motion to approve grant application submission to the State Historic Preservation Office.
I'll second it.
And does it have to be in the amount of 20,000?
Up to?
Up to.
Up to, yeah.
Oh, up to $20,000.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I'm going to abstain.
Motion carries. You've got that? Okay. Thank you. And my agenda
Number 5.
got cut off. And number 5, this is what we talked about even before this, was the Tremco contract. And this is before us tonight. It's been before us in the past. They are a company that that provides us with not only inspections, but on-call service for any needs in town. And in your council packet, I believe there's 300 and some roofs that they inspect, in a couple 100,000 square feet of those. So I'll open up for discussion. I know the Deputy Mayor has some comments that he wants to make.
Yes, thank you. Some of you may recall I spoke at length about this contract at last year's renewal. I've seen no change in what's going on with our roofs in town. I'm not debating whether a number of service calls are being answered and handled properly, but I am going to comment on the inspection portion of and the rating of the roofs. There's an extensive report that's issued after the folks at Tremco inspect all the roofs, and they advise the town on what's wrong with them, what needs to be addressed, and I think they categorize them as, you know, something along the lines of urgent or eventually needs to be replaced, so on. I go around town and I see problems with roofs. In this building here, last year I spoke about the staining that's visible on the facades of both sides. It's visible from the South Deane Highway. You can see black streaks down the side of the building. Visible from the parking lot, again, black streaks. To me, that indicates there's water leaking down the face of the buildings, possibly getting into the buildings, I don't know. And I asked the person from Tremco, Mike, I believe it was, about that, and It was in the report, and they recommended something be done about it. And as far as I can tell, nothing's been done about it because we still have black stains on the sides of the building. And there seems to be just a real disconnect between what Tremco provides and what the town, how the town responds. I sit at Village Pizza often on a nice summer day, and I have my meal with my wife, and I look across at the Standish House, and there's a shingle that's displaced on the left side of the roof. It's about halfway up. It's a wood shingle roof, replaced maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, but that shingle has been there for at least a year, and I took a photo of it with my phone September 26th, 2022, and it's still like that. And this contract runs from August to August. So did Tremco look at it and say, hey, you need to fix that? Or did they not inspect the roof? The roof's in horrible condition. It's filthy. And I was educated by Mr. Ovian at a historic district meeting, who has, as Counselor said, he has a wood shingle roof on his house on the Broad Street Green. And the conversation was about the firehouse roof, and I said, you know, we can put an asphalt roof on there and it'll last a lot longer. And Mr. Ovian explained that if you take care of a cedar shingle roof by cleaning it occasionally, at some cost, you're going to extend the life of the roof. And, you know, I did some research on Cedar Shingle Association of Canada or whatever, and yeah, you know, you can, if it's done properly, you can clean the roof and extend the life of it. Well, the roof on the Standish house is covered in debris. So does Tremco recommend that? Is that a maintenance? Is that something they should be doing under this contract? Or should they be telling the town, hey, you need to clean the roof? So I just have a lot of questions with this contract, and we've been doing it for years. It's, you know, $80,000 or $70-something thousand, and I don't see where we're getting our money's worth. If it's last year, the conversation seemed to be like Tremco's doing what they're supposed to do, and the town gets a report, and then that's where the breakdown was. And, you know, part of it has to do with money. The roofs are very expensive. We could spend millions of dollars fixing roofs in our town, which I personally think we should be concentrating on. You get water into the building, you end up losing the building. We saw it at the firehouse. It had black mold down the walls for 8 years before we did anything about the roof. If it's a money problem, I believe our town employees should be bringing that to the town manager and to the town council and saying, look, we need to fix 7 roofs right now. It's going to be $10 million or whatever the number is, and then it's up to the town manager and the 9 of us up here to figure out where we're going to get the money and how we're going to do it. But to just not talk about it or not put it on the capital improvement list of something that needs to be done, I don't think that's the way to go. So I'll say again, I don't have a problem with them responding to 330 whatever service calls. I think that's important, and it's important to have somebody that's under contract that, you know, is going to respond and not say, well, you know, you're number 10 on the list, so we'll get out there when we can. I think that part's good, but I don't agree with how the rest of it works with the inspection and maintenance.
Okay, ask the town manager, when does the contract expire?
August 31st?
Yeah, the end of August,
Oh, so it's already expired.
yes.
I'd like to know the answer to what Tom just said about the Lucky Lou roof. I mean, I'd kind of like to have them get back to us about that.
And we can have Tremco, like we did last year, come and
I think we should.
answer any of your questions. I will say that this is a leak response contract and an inspection contract. The work to be done, they do make recommendations for replacements and major repairs regularly. They have been submitted as part of the CIP process in previous years, and a portion of them get funded from year to year. To the deputy mayor's point, it would be tens of millions of dollars to do all the work we need to do on all the roofs. You see the number in the background report on the number of roofs that we have. Even though we have 25 buildings, we have 166 different roofs, because every little square section is its own roof, its own membrane on the flat roofs. We have major capital issues with our roofs. This was presented by Trimco last year. It's presented in the report that's provided every year. The reality of bringing it forward, and I've only been here for a year, so I can't tell you what's happened in the past, but I know that they said just bring the most critical has been the mantra. You guys get the report every year. I see the report, and it doesn't look good. We have some major structural issues with the roofs across the town. There's no doubt about it. It would spend every dime and then 10 times over that you devote to capital currently in CNEF. So the fiscal reality of it is we have to triage that, patch and repair like these guys are doing. That's why you see the number of responses that they're out there doing, and they are prioritizing and doing what has to get done. If there's direction from the council to say, nope, we want to do it all at once, come up with a way, I'll bring it to you next meeting.
Sorry. It's my understanding that this is just specifically essentially for emergency response to leaks.
Correct.
There's a leak, they come in, they fix it and move on.
Well, that and regular
No?
inspections and basic preventive maintenance. So if you look at the contract there, so, yeah.
So if we didn't approve this, where would that put us if we had a leak?
We'd have to pay individually every response call. Whereas right now, it doesn't matter if they respond, 100 times or 300 times, that's our price.
Okay.
We'd have to pay individually for each response, and it also doesn't give us prioritization. So if they're not under contract with us, we just call them if we have an emergency. They're not bound to get right out and take care of us because they're going to deal with the folks that they're under contract with first. We have to call somebody else, maybe.
Sorry. Oh, no, I was just thinking, and then do you have an estimate, traditional tiny little leak, price per fix? I'm just curious, because I don't know anything about fixing leaks.
Well, I know just any kind of home repair, if you, even to get them to the house, you're paying a couple $100 just to get them to respond, and then the time, you're looking at, probably $100, $200 per hour, then all the materials and everything else. So it can get pretty expensive depending on the extent of the leak. And some of these membrane leaks are very complicated and take quite a while to track down. They can be running around the top of a roof for days, literally trying to find that spot, because it might be leaking over here
Years.
into the building, but the actual leak in the roof might be over here, and then it's traveling.
And it's all covered under this.
Yeah, so they cover those leaks right now. It's not solving the problem. To Tom's point, the deputy mayor's point, it's kicking the can down the road is what it's doing, and that's been, it's not just roofs. We've talked about this with a lot of issues on maintenance. It's been something that's kind of been neglected for many years, but also to the deputy mayor's point, if the roof doesn't work, then it's going to cause a lot more costs down the line, so.
Councilman O'Connor?
I just have a question. So, to the town manager, who's responsible for calling them when there's a leak?
Basically, it's the physical services staff who identify the leak or it's been reported to.
All right, so, there's been a leak at the press box at the high school for, a year, maybe longer, where now the floorboards are rotting. And our answer to that has been to throw a towel or some type of tarp over it, because that supposedly unrots rotten wood. That's a new science for me. But my question is, have they been called about the leak at the press box at the high school?
I don't know. I'll have to look into that and get back to you on it. I don't know the specifics of that.
Yeah, and I just, to follow with the deputy mayor, I and Counselor Ecclesia, I would like to have the answers to his questions as well. I mean, I don't know, does that mean we delay this and wait till we get those answers and then vote on it, and then does that end up costing us more money? That's, the unknown.
I mean, I would suggest that we know we're going to have a contract in place with someone to do this work. We can bring them to the next meeting, and you can ask all the questions. I don't think that any of the issues we're dealing with are because of Tremco's lack of doing the job that they're hired to do. They've been pretty consistent. They've been very responsive when we do have leaks. So I would recommend we move forward with it, but I'll absolutely bring them in if they're available for the next meeting and have them respond to any questions. They can go over the report and make their overall recommendation to you all how they feel like we should move forward.
So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a multi-year contract and we just renew it each year. I think we're like a 5-year contract.
I believe so.
That's why they continue even though it's August 31st.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. And generally, this would not be something that would come to the council every year. It's only because this is handled through the CNEF process and not a budget process, because most of the maintenance type contracts we have are just handled in the department budgets. So this is kind of a unique, it's not a capital project per se, it's a maintenance issue. So it should really be a budget item as opposed to, but yeah, they're saying it does say annual contract, so.
Yeah, it says 1 year
I think
annual.
because of the process that's been used, they won't go beyond a year.
And then my other comment is that I don't believe we receive the report each year. And the report is available online. It's 600 and something pages. So I think it would be helpful if we, council, future council, got a summary of the roofs that are rated for, immediate replacement or, very poor condition or something like that.
Sure.
With some kind of budgetary number. I've been on Capital Improvements Advisory Committee for 4 years, and we just see the 1 or 2 roof sections that need to be addressed immediately. And like I said earlier tonight, the Academy building has been on the radar for a lot of people for as long as the firehouse. And, it's somehow we have to get it to be a priority. And, I kind of like to say it's not a sexy project. Nobody wants to spend $7.6 million of ARPA money to fix roofs that the residents won't even know that the guys were up there doing the work. But you get water in your house. You have to stop it. It's just going to deteriorate rapidly. And with mold and things like that, I mean, you read about buildings that the state owns where they basically have to condemn the building. There's so much moisture and mold in the building that you can't have your workforce in the building. So, and these are essentially all public buildings. So I think we need to do something different than what we're doing. And we just keep, year after year, we keep doing the same thing and we're not getting anywhere. So, I agree with the moving forward with the maintenance aspect of it, but inspection part.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up, I agree with the deputy mayor. I think that, I'm sorry that your dinner might have been spoiled at Village Pizza, but the important point is, can we get a priority list from them? And I have not seen the 600-page report. Maybe you read it, which would be great. But if we can get 1 or 2 pages that kind of summarize and maybe prioritizes what roofs are most important for us to tackle, I think that would be pretty valuable, because a lot of them are in disrepair. But maybe we can, these are the 2 or 3 we'd recommend the town handle first. But it's a good point, Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Forrest?
Thanks, Mayor. I think the deputy mayor brings up some good points, and I'm just going to sort of understand I think, understand what he's talking about and why I think we probably should delay the particular implementation at this moment in time for a short break until we can get a better understanding of the expectations of each party. It sounds like we have a scope uncertainty with this particular contract, meaning exactly, especially on the maintenance side, right? Does the cleaning of the roof constitute maintenance? Does it not constitute maintenance? We may want to have a clear understanding about what does constitute maintenance and falls into this category so that we as a town get the benefit of our bargain as we go through. Inspection oversight, looks like, it sounds like the Deputy Mayor brought up a couple of things that, how are we ensuring or have some type of oversight that the inspection process that they're doing is in fact as comprehensive as they're purporting it to be, and that there's a concern there, what the expectations are of this particular vendor that we have, that we're bringing to their attention so that they can match our expectations, and that we do walk around town and we do look at the roofs, even though they're not the most sexy thing going. And that when we get a report that's missing that, it lends itself that we don't necessarily have the confidence that we may have had initially with them, and that we're noticing that over time. Then the last thing is the reporting expectations, like we just discussed. How are we getting the reporting? In what form are we getting the reporting? And I think some of this stuff can be probably contracted into. We probably could adjust some of the words slightly in order to match the expectations that we have of this particular company as we move forward as a town. I'm okay with the 2-week delay to get this right moving forward in the longer term. We've used this company for a while. It's not like I think anyone is drastically upset with them, but I think forming a more perfect union between the two is a noble goal, and I understand the concerns of the deputy mayor, and I would be okay to table it, and the deputy mayor can talk to the town manager and perhaps make some adjustments to the language which match the discussion that we've had here today.
Is that a motion?
Is it a motion
Well,
to table?
hang on, just before,
No,
would Tremco be open to reworking, I mean, they created this contract, not with us, but for us.
Correct.
So, I mean, I think maybe what we can do is bring the concerns of council to, and Mike signed this, and he was the one that was here last year. Maybe get some answers from him. So I'm indifferent if we approve it going forward. If we need to, is there any kind of concern that if we don't approve it, it's already September, and I mean, can they hold off for 2 more weeks, or should we approve this and then address some of the concerns to Mike going forward post approval?
Again, I can't speak for what they'd be okay with or not, because they're not here to answer that. If the council wants to wait 2 weeks, they may or may not honor the existing agreement. They may say you have to call us and pay us for individual calls, and we'll just have to absorb that, that's all.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I would not, I would rather see us approve it tonight and then get, I don't know his last name, Mike Boudreau in to speak with us. He was very, forthcoming at the last meeting. He answered all the questions. He knew he seemed to know exactly what he was talking about. Just from a cost standpoint, the Standish House roof cleaning, I am reasonably certain that that is not going to be considered a maintenance item because it's going to be very costly to do. So I think the wording is that they take care of leak response and minor repairs. And that's why we have that second batch of money for when the minor repairs become more extensive. And even though it's a leak response, we still end up paying more than just a regular service call type work. So I wouldn't have a problem approving this contract. And then, I mean, they've been working with us for quite a few years. I can't see why they would refuse to have a conversation with us about, what our expectations are, what they provide, and so forth. So.
Okay. Councilman Lesser?
I too think we should move forward, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the annual contract with Weatherproofing Technologies, a subsidiary of Tremco Incorporated, to provide Trem Care Service Platinum Gold Visa Renewal Agreement, which was presented as part of the CIP section of the budget package for this year. The contract gives the town 24/7 access to leak response for all of our town buildings and schools.
Second. Further discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question is, if we approve this, then we lose all leverage. So if he comes in and we say, well, you know, we really want this or that, he's just going to sit there and say it cost us more money. Because he doesn't have to agree to anything since we just approved this contract and basically signed it. So I think you lose all your leverage by doing that. And, you know, I tend to agree with Councilor Forrest in that maybe delaying this, have these questions answered, because if you look at the exclusions on this, those are pretty wide open. You know, they talk about any intentional or negligent acts such as misuse, traffic, storage, whatever. So if we don't maintain it, can they use that? Or even damage of the roof caused by faulty original construction or design of building components? I mean, so if the roof, we find out was not designed correctly, they're not gonna fix it. We have to fix it. And so there's some of those things I'd like to get more clarification. So if we don't clean off the roof, as the deputy mayor said, does that mean now that's all on us and they don't have to touch it because we didn't clean it? Was that what this means by negligent, because we're not taking care of the roof? Like, to me is, I don't know, that just, to me, seems like if you approve this now, you basically have lost all leverage, and he can come in here and say, yeah, we could do that, and I can add this clause, but it's gonna cost you this, it's gonna cost you that, and either we're gonna end up paying more, or we're gonna say, no, we'll just stay with what we have, so you kinda just sold away your rights.
They're supposed to remove the debris.
Yeah,
They're supposed to remove it.
the removal of debris and all that's not even included,
Yeah, it says it's supposed to be.
so. well,
Well,
it's supposed to be, but they're
Yeah.
clearly not doing it, so. So if they're neglectful in their job, then they can say, we were neglectful, therefore we don't cover it. It just, there's, I don't know, leave that to Councilor Forrest being a lawyer, but.
If I can just respond a little bit to some of your concerns about, like, take debris, for example. So if you go in the report, you know, there's various roof drains throughout a flat roof. And there'll be a picture of the drain and it's clogged up with leaves, and they put that in the report and they clean the leaves out as part of their inspection and annual whatever, and there'll be a comment in there. I remember the High Crest portables, there's a tree that hangs over them, and it says, you know, we put a new roof on there, but we can't really guarantee it because you got all these tree branches hanging over, and the branch falls and punctures the roof. You can't expect us to pay to have it fixed, so again, I think they do a fair job, and my concern would be that they say, you know what? We're tired of dealing with you guys. You know, here's our 24-hour response number and call that, and we'll charge you accordingly. So I'd rather see us sign it, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they have worked well with the town. I think maybe the town can do a better job of working with them on some of the, you know, recommendations that they put forth, and do a better job of informing us on council and when we're formulating the budget to prioritize what we need to do. Yeah, I think if we move forward with it tonight and then we invite Mike in, we can do that. So, motion has, Councilman Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with Dan. I think that having an honest conversation about the concerns the Deputy Mayor brought up prior to signing the contract it's a more honest move it doesn't leave things open to, well, we had a nice relationship with you, so we thought you were going to do this. What happens in 2 weeks? I'm not concerned about the next couple weeks figuring out at this time of year what we need to do with this. I have no problem, of course, voting for it. I think it's an important vendor for us, and I think it's important for the maintenance of our buildings. But it's not just really about leverage, about taking advantage of someone, but it's having a meeting of the minds and an understanding about we're contracting with them. We have some concerns. There are several of them. I agree with the deputy mayor with some of those concerns. And we should have that honest conversation. So I'm going to move the table until the next meeting so we can get that worked out. And I'll be looking for a second.
Second. Yeah, we had a motion for approval already on.
Yeah, and I move it to table that motion until the next meeting. Which is how you.
Funny, I think
play it.
we've been in this predicament
It's
before.
a secondary motion.
You can make a substitute motion. Yeah.
On top of the original motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Comments on tabling the motion? Motion's before us and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
This is the table?
Yes.
I'm abstaining on that.
Okay. Everybody's voted. So I have 8 yay, 1 abstention. Is that correct? Yep. Sue, you're good? Okay, so, Mr. Town Manager, reach out and let's hope they are available
Yeah, I don't know
in
who
2
it
weeks.
is, but well, yeah.
And I don't know, I don't think there are any actors of bad faith that they would not, if we have an emergency in the next 2 weeks, not address those concerns, even though we don't have a contract with them. Okay, moving forward, item number 6. This is the tax settlement for the Ridge Road Development Group. As noted in our packet, this has been going on for a number of years. It stems from the tax abatement that prior council had approved. I don't know, it's a 275 Ridge Road development. I think that's what it is. Originally looked at for a
Ridge Road Development.
Oh, yep. This was a claim from the development group that we reneged on a tax incentive program of 2015. They originally sought $600,000. We have talked before. We've had counsel in to discuss it. Offer and counter offers have been made, and the final settlement cost that we had negotiated was $100,000 to prevent future litigation and cost of counsel and whatever legal expenses going forward that a trial would incur. I will open up the floor. I know Councilman Forrest had concerns, therefore we took it off consent. So, Councilman Forrest?
I just don't think the settlement is the right move for us in this particular litigation, and I just wanted to vote on it, that's all. Not gonna, we talked about an executive session. My position's the same.
So you'd rather go to trial, Matt?
I don't think we're wrong on this one.
We heard what council had told us about, and we had discussions of going either lower than 100,000 or taking their offer at greater than 100,000. I thought we compromised at $100,000. Yeah, I think we've gotten to a point where I don't know if Mike O'Neill, I see him, if we have broken down the cost of legal counsel to get us to this point so far. Do we know how much counsel has cost us to get to this point?
I don't have an exact amount for you. I think the question was asked of council. I think the estimate was somewhere around 20 to 30,000, if I recall.
Already?
To this point, yeah. That's before going to trial.
Open it up to further conversation or further comment?
I don't know how much we're supposed to talk about when it was an executive session.
I know.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Is anyone to make a motion? Let's see, do we have?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, sure. I'll make a motion to approve the settlement of the tax appeal brought by Ridge Road Development Group LLC and to authorize the town manager to sign the documents required to implement the settlement.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, further discussion first. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay. Nay.
Ayes have it. Do you need a roll call, Sue?
Was it? Yes, please.
You got to call the roll.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find my spot here. Counselor Carbone?
Aye.
Counselor Clancy?
Aye.
Counselor Forrest?
No.
Counselor Lesser?
Aye.
Counselor Hill?
Aye.
Counselor Pentelow?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarello?
Aye.
Mayor Rill? Oh, I know.
Aye. And I think you need Councilman O'Connor.
Just say the best for last.
There it is, okay. Thank you.
I was a nay.
There it is.
You've been removed.
Motion carries 7-2.
Sue's had enough of you.
Moving on, we did have unfinished business, actually no approval or ordinances or resolutions for us tonight. Item L1, unfinished business. This is what Mike O'Neill is here for, budget reconciliation and transfers. This was tabled from our last meeting.
Good evening. Mike O'Neill, Director of Finance. This item was tabled at the last meeting, and just to recap where we ended, at that point, this is an annual exercise, part of the budget process, to propose for the council transfer of unexpended expenditure appropriations from the budget for the year ended June 30th of '23. There were several exhibits that were provided. Those are in the agenda packet again this month, and just detailing various balances by account, rather by department, the appropriations and the actual expenditures. And then what was presented at the last meeting was a list of $1.1 million items for transfer to non-lapsing funds, to the Capital Non-Recurring Expenditure Fund and the Capital Improvement Fund. So that's where we ended at the last meeting. There's a couple of changes, things that have transpired since the last meeting that we've kind of laying on top of this. It would require you to amend that motion that is on the table. I will detail those for you. They're on page 72 in your agenda packet. There's a 4-column spreadsheet there that basically takes that $1.1 million of proposed transfers that you saw at the last meeting and makes 2 proposed changes for you to consider tonight. One of those is to reallocate $450,000 from items that were presented to fund the small business loan program that has already been approved and funded from the ARPA funds. $450,000 was approved. I'm not going to find the date. I can get that for you. But that's already been approved, small business loans. We've had some internal discussions and realized because of the timing of when the ARPA funds have to be committed and expended, that they really don't lend themselves to a loan program. We'd have to essentially have a 2-year term on the loan and basically call that loan by the end of 2026, which we don't think that accomplishes the purposes of the program. So we came to that realization, so we're going back to that list of 1.1 million, taking 450,000 off of that and proposing 450 of the 1.1 million to be used for the loan program.
And just on that, the 450 that was previously allocated from ARPA will now go back into ARPA. So you'd still have that money to spend. It's just it's in the ARPA pot.
The other item is really just a housekeeping item that I should have included before. I didn't think to do it. As things sit at the end of the year in the engineering department, there are 3 purchase orders. They total about $49,000. That's not money that's been spent, but it's been contractually committed, so it shows up as expended. Those purchase orders, I prefer to have those. A better practice is to have those not in the general fund, but have them in CIP, and they're basically for sidewalks. They're and the guardrail project on Highland Ave. So it would just be, it would be an additional $49,000 transferred to CIP, but it doesn't change the bottom line here because we would release the POs, which reduces the expenditures in the engineering line, and then we would just take that overage and include it in the transfers. So it still leaves, after the 1.1 million, there's 167,000 that lapses to fund balance. That doesn't change.
That 49,902 is currently in engineering's department budget right now?
As expended
As
funds.
expended, yep.
So we'd
Plop 'em.
we'd temporarily cancel those POs internally only, cancel the POs, the expenditures would go down, then there'd be money left over in engineering.
Fills that.
And then you'd be taking that money and putting it over into the capital improvement fund, where we could then set the POs back up again. They're over in the non-lapsing fund. It's just, we really shouldn't. We've kind of done it. I'm getting us away from that practice of having general fund POs that linger beyond a couple of months after fiscal year end. And these would linger well beyond that.
Gotcha. Okay. Just a couple questions from the last one, and this is what you and I talked about, those utility vehicles for both the police and fire department. Are they included in here as well? I think I still see them on page 73. This is the engineering vehicle, special apparatus vehicles, and the fire command vehicle.
So if you look back to 72, page 72, the proposed funds moving to the vehicle reserve was 164. With that reallocation of the 450,000, we took 73,000 of that, brought that down to 91,000. I'll just talk about the original 164. That breakdown of those vehicles was kind of conceptually what we had in mind, but that's something that we would come back to the council to get approval on. Really, what the transfer, the 164, which is now 91,000, is just a transfer to the vehicle reserve
Not
project.
earmarked for any particular.
Again, it was sort of conceptually,
Yep.
we'd like to have a basis for these things, and that was conceptual. Those are items that were requested, have been requested and discussed internally. 2 of them were requested in the budget process, the special application vehicles, I guess what they're gators is what,
Yep.
we kind of call them internally. Those were not part of the budget process, but have been discussed internally. But again, those would be, we'd have to come back. Those are over $33,000. We come back to you to get those purchases approved.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
So when I look at the page 72 spreadsheet there, what is the difference between CNEF vehicle reserves that we just spoke about, the 91,000, and CNEF undesignated reserves, 200,000 that you're replenishing. Is it the same account, or?
We have projects within the CNEF fund for all sorts of things, fire hoses, pagers,
Okay.
radios. And then we have an undesignated account project. That is for emergencies. And we also, what we've used that balance for is we take 200,000 of that when we put the budget together to offset the lease payments. Traditionally, what we've done is we did that again for the '24 budget. We took the 200 to reduce the budget impact of the lease payments. And then for the last 3, maybe 4 years, at this stage, we've then put the money back, replenished that undesignated. That's what that's the basis for the $200,000 proposal, is to replace what we used in the '24 budget, and to put it there for emergencies, or to use it again next spring, like we've used it in the past, to offset lease payments in the operating budget.
And on that same page, we're, now in this proposal, we're no longer going to fund the radio upgrade, 200,000, correct?
Correct. And that lease payment drops off in '25. So that was we had to come up with 450.
Somewhere.
8 into the 1.1,
Right.
but that was, yeah.
I guess in my mind, I'm trying to understand whether it's more important or more beneficial for us to, replenish some of that radio upgrade money with vehicle reserves, forego the 91,000 of potential. The radio upgrades is a $2 million project, right? So
It's upwards of $2 million.
And
We've got a little money.
Is there any money in there right now?
There is. There's money from ARPA there's money from ARPA. I can't recall the details off the top of my head. There's also money in CNEF for the network sentries, which was
Right.
kind of one of the early, there's some
That
devices.
one we approved, yeah.
That are a little more urgent because of there's an end of life cycle issue with those.
Can't we take 200 out of ARPA, get back?
So there is some money, but that's something we have to come back and talk about, is that whole upgrade. It's fairly substantial.
And I don't want to get into the weeds too far, but there was a conversation I had with Chief Medina about the gators, the special vehicles. One was to be for the fire department, I understand, and one was for the police department.
Yes.
And I thought he told me that, I told him there was $50,000 in there, and he says, that's nowhere near what we need for
Two of them.
for one. He was saying it was a $60,000 vehicle, so I didn't understand that.
I don't know much about these things, but I did actually look it up. They look pretty nice, the $25,000 ones.
25,
I mean,
25, 35, yeah.
I mean, again, I try to do a little bit of due diligence on these
right.
things, so
Yeah,
there is a
I think
there
it
is
has to
a
do with what they
contract
want
out
on
there.
board.
Yeah.
So like the fire components, if they wanted pumpers, mini pumpers and things like that.
Right.
That'll drive up the cost, but you could get them, the gator, and they can put in for later purchases to upfit them if that's the desire, and that's where we go with it. But, initially right now, the biggest need is, that we've seen, if you were at Porch Fest, we borrowed one from Newington, and we borrowed one from, was it East Windsor?
I think it was.
But, so,
It wasn't a good look.
it wasn't a
No,
good
well,
look. And we've used them.
Put duct tape on the
Yeah.
Newington, but.
And we use them at the fireworks, and they're very helpful to get in and out, and to get people in and out if we need to, in a crowd like that. So, for the number of events that we do in this town, we should really have them, but.
Okay.
I don't know if this sounds crazy, but is there any way, instead of putting the 450 back to ARPA, we can take that 200 and fund the radio reserve? And so then we have 250 going back to ARPA instead?
You can always,
You can do it tonight, you can do it later, because it goes back, if you fund the loan program from the year-end excess money, it frees that commitment up in the ARPA, and so it goes back to the council to use in a different way.
How imminent is the radio upgrade within a couple of years?
We have time. We have the money for the network sentries, which again, I'm going to pretend to know exactly what they are, but they're these devices.
Nobody.
They're these devices that
You have to have
they have
them, yeah.
software that is end of life, and when we approach end of life, there are security issues and so forth, so we like to take care of those. So those, like, the imminent needs are taken care of. The whole project, the 2 million, is a multi-year effort.
2 years, 5 years,
3,
3?
more than 2,
That's going to go my way.
less than 5.
Yeah, okay.
It's right before the roof replacements.
Councilwoman Clancy.
So Mike, having put that money back in the ARPA, what's the total remaining ARPA now?
774,713 plus 450,000.
Are you reading that off something?
Minus the 70, no, we didn't do the 70,000 tonight. So, yeah, 774, 713 plus
1.225
450.
essentially.
I agree.
Wow.
I can't do the math back.
It's like
1.225
essentially.
1.2.
Okay.
Councilman Forrest?
Move to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget transfers as detailed on page 72.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Not on this item, but looking at the list of ARPA allocations, I would like to point out that on August 1st of last year, we paid $73,747,000 for roof consultant services. So we paid Tremco's contract last year through ARPA funding. So, not to do with this, it's just, we were talking about ARPA and roof earlier. So, no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike.
So just to be clear, we approved the revised transfers for action, right?
And then dial-a-ride,
This is what
something
we
else we've paid, and now a good segue into something else we paid for through ARPA, and I guess we don't need all those funds that we had allocated in the first place.
Good evening. We're requesting some part-time assistance in our social and youth services department, basically because over the past several years, the need has just grown for a lot of different things going on in social and youth services. Back in the early part of COVID, you had authorized dial-a-ride funds out of ARPA for the dial-a-ride. It was cut out of the operating budget, but the ARPA funds were available. As we found out, there weren't a lot of trips during that particular year, and so we did not need the money. We had carried it over another year because we were going into a different contract with a different company, and we weren't sure what they were going to come back with their bid for our services for the dial-a-ride program. So as all that transpired, we've been getting much busier in social and youth services for a variety of reasons that are all in the memo, and be happy to go into it in more detail. And we're looking to bring in a part-time person to assist with some of the special programs we do in social and youth services, to basically free up our social workers to do the social worker business of the department.
Thank you. Kathy, any questions for Kathy on this? Councilman Forrest?
Not so much a question, just sort of a perspective. This seems like a position, needed, important, all true. But this would be something that we would budget on a regular basis. We foresee that this would be going forward for years as part of our budget of deliberations, from police to fire to social and youth services. Totally for this position. If we're going to do it on a short-term basis, if we've truly run into an emergency, we have a contingency for that purpose. I'm trying to be fairly consistent here with the ARPA funds, but that's sounds like something that we're going to have to anticipate to move forward with for our town on its regular budget, pay our regular bills yearly, and that this is functioning in that manner. ARPA I don't think, it's not a clear rule, there's not a law that says anything, of course, but I think that if it's that important, in order to get to the next budget, which is now 4 months away, well, no, it's more than that now, 9 months away, we can partially fund it out of contingency for that time period, and we review the request, like all the rest of the requests, during our significant budget deliberations for what's in the best interest of the town. I love the idea. I'm happy to pay for it out of an emergency contingency fund for the duration of this period, but funding it out of ARPA I don't think is the right tool by which we get the job done. It's food for thought, but we've had a lot of these type of conversations before.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I totally agree with Councilor Forrest. He's a much better speaker than I am to convey all the importance of the position and everything. But if you recall, we had a person came in early on in the ARPA discussions about what the money should be used for, and we were all cautioned that it should not be used for salaries. That was one of the things they strongly recommended, in my recollection, that the reality is if you use a temporary funding source for these positions, they're just not going to let those people go in 3 years. It's, I'm sure they would be doing a great job, and it's going to help out the department and provide all the necessary services, but no one's going to say, well, sorry, we ran out of money, so hit the road. So I think it's a budgeted position, and I would be against using ARPA money for this.
Further discussion? Councilwoman Carbone?
Thank you. So are you suggesting that we, and Councilor Forrest as well, are you suggesting that we move ahead with the position but fund it from a different source? Is that what you're saying as well?
Well, that's not what the motion is, so.
Well, can we always change the motion, so?
You could amend it. I think you'd probably want to find out what the dollars are to have this position come on relatively immediately until the end of the fiscal year, and then the council will maybe even likely say it's great to move forward, but, the council will make that decision with all the priorities of the town.
What would be the difference between taking it out of ARPA for now and deciding what to do with it within the budget at the end of the next fiscal year?
They're both essentially one-time sources. It's not a budgeted position at this point. The ARPA guidance actually does allow for it to be used for temporary salaries. It's actually one of the eligible items. It's not something that, to the Deputy Mayor's point, that I would support if it was considered a permanent position, because it's not good budgeting to use one-time funds for salary. There are many examples, particularly in higher education, where positions are grant-based and have a defined end date. That'd be the way that I would propose, if you wanted to do that, to move forward with the ARPA funds. Absent that, I can see Mike's already gearing up to come and talk about different sources, and I'll let him kind of speak to the contingency piece of this. But in my mind, they're both one-time sources that we have limited use for. You'd still need to Councilor Forrest's point, if you wanted to make them permanent, then you'd have to make that part of a future budget process, whether that's the next budget process or 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line. I think his proposal here, that's something for consideration. I don't know if Mike, you wanted to weigh in.
Sorry, Pat was up too. Go ahead.
Sure. Town manager's correct that it's allowable to use the funds from ARPA. I would say, if that's not your intent, the other way to handle this, and if contingency is another option, however, you cannot By charter, you can only transfer money from contingency in the third quarter of the fiscal, or fourth quarter of the fiscal year. But what you could do is simply approve the expenditure, approve the plan. Recall that when you appropriate funds to Parks and Recreation, you appropriate at the department level. So the manager and the department head have discretion how to use that. We give you a plan when we put the budget together, and that's generally what we do. But it's okay, and it's allowable for management to vary from that plan. So this would be a case where my recommendation would be, if you're not going to use ARPA, is to authorize the plan to hire the position and pay for it out of the existing appropriation in Parks and Recreation, and then we'll take a look at it in the fourth quarter, and if it looks like Parks is going to run over because of that, at that time, you can transfer the appropriation from contingency to Parks and Recreation. Oh, I'm sorry.
Erica is back there from Social News Service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Counselor.
Councilor Pentelo, and then Councilor Lesser, Councilwoman Clancy.
Yeah, I mean, Mike just pretty much summed it up, but I mean, I'd be comfortable allocating ARPA funds for this position, even though in the past, I haven't been too keen on using it for positions, but I think in this case, it checks every box. I mean, it's a part-time position that's pretty much aiding in behavioral health. I mean, I'm just reading the department comments, behavioral and mental health, homelessness, hoarding, energy assistance, protective services, emergency situations. All these things were exacerbated by the pandemic, and these ARPA funds were specifically to deal with the pandemic. So regardless of how it's funded, the position, I think, is desperately needed at this point.
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilor Pentelo, and my understanding is these were ARPA funds already allocated for Dial-A-Ride, and it's just switching it because we didn't have as much usage, but ARPA funds were already allocated. We desperately need the position, whereas I don't always think it's wise to use ARPA funds for salaries and positions. We already allocated it, and for all the good reasons that Councilor Pentelo just mentioned, and that we already allocated ARPA funds for this, I support this recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
I would support a motion.
Councilwoman Clancy?
I'm just curious, if you were not to get the funds for the position, would you continue to prioritize the social work over the special programs? And could you also say on the record just what those special programs are that you might have to eliminate?
So our special programs are our backpack school program, our Thanksgiving, our holiday gift program, our summer campership program, stuff like that. They've grown over the last couple of years, and also just the social work capacity with dealing with the crisis management has just gotten pretty large at this point. So we would definitely still work with all these residents in these situations. We would they just have to get prioritized.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question about cost, $95,000, and it's a one part-time position?
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And the caveat would be that, just like we've said on numerous other occasions about grant funding, and I think town manager has brought it up, it would be crystal clear that, this is temporary, short-term. Future council at that point in the future would say whether you would come before council at the budget deliberations or budget hearings, that you would want the position filled permanently, work
Yes.
through town manager on hiring and placing them in any union at that point, or whatever position that they collectively bargain for to be in. So, yeah, it's either you're taking it out of ARPA as a one-time for right now that we've already allocated for, or budget for it and then reconcile at the end of the year, fiscal year. I don't see a problem taking it out of ARPA if it's already been allocated for Dial-A-Ride and we didn't have the need for it at that point. So, Sure.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the reallocation of ARPA funds from dollar-ride transportation to fund a part-time staff position in social and youth services for 3 years through December 2026 at a cost of $95,000.
Second.
Motion's before us and seconded. Further discussion? Councilman Forrest?
Thanks, Mayor. Was this position presented before the council, 3 or 4 months ago when we passed the budget?
It wasn't presented as a request for the operating budget. However, back when we did initially make requests for ARPA funds, it was one of the suggestions we put forward at that time, and that actually was for a full-time position. So it's been on our radar. We just thought we would see what played out, and it's just gotten much busier in social and youth.
So why wasn't it, though, if it was important at ARPA before the budget, why wasn't something as significant as what we're talking about today presented at the budget as a priority for the town?
Because it was still being considered as part of the ARPA funds.
But we knew that we didn't approve the ARPA funds at that time. So why would we not just put it through a regular budget process and say this is important, like a lot of the other things that we have?
We just did not do it then.
I think there were a lot of items that were still, there's still many items on the ARPA.
They just
Wish list.
dropped, they
Wish
dropped
list.
through the cracks.
And there's still money there, so I think people are just waiting to see how the final
Yeah, I think there's still a
distribution
big
was.
wish list.
Yeah.
I mean, we just voted on a few items.
No,
or
I
whatever
think
it was.
Councilor
No, but what
Moore's
I'm,
point
I guess
is
what I'm
he's-
saying,
Yeah, I
I'm
get
not
gravity
making
of
a
the
point here, but I'm
situation.
just saying, like, whether or not it's on the ARPA fund, if it's important, engineering, they wanted their people, but they still requested engineering and park and racks and all this stuff. And when we came up, we're talking now about, asking for this almost, what I'm feeling is like it's an emergency basis, but 90 days ago, 100 days ago, this wasn't even on the radar to be requested just in a regular budget. That just could have gotten accepted or rejected, of course, by the council with the amount of resources we have. So it sounds like it wasn't a priority at the budget hearing when we add people. Sounds like it's pretty, is that accurate?
Excuse me. I wouldn't say it wasn't a priority. I mean, we were thinking that it was still on the ARPA list. Obviously, it hadn't made it all the way through, so we just didn't do it. We would look at it as doubling up at the, if we had did it both in the budget and the ARPA list. So that was on me,
Yeah.
and that was a decision I made.
And has anything changed since the passing of the budget, or those conversations in today, which makes the need more acute?
Yes, yes.
I will speak to the homeless situations. We're getting calls from motels, hotels, probably a couple a week, just dealing with residents, families, transient populations that they're all emergency situations. And I know Fred, the town manager, can speak on the amount of hoarding issues that have been coming across the town and our department. So those have to be tended to pretty quickly. And they take up a considerable amount of resources. So those are just two examples on top of the mental health, the substance use, and all the behavioral health that we're seeing.
And how much would it be to fund this position through the end of the year, as Mr. O'Neill described? Hiring the position till the end of the year, and then we can consider what that cost would be.
I brought my worksheet with me.
Cool.
So it would be roughly
20?
25, right in that vicinity.
Okay. And then the council could reassess, and if we did it that way, and then we could reassess what, the needs are. I'm a little concerned to the council. We talk about this as like a temporary thing, but this is a 3-year contract, which is not really temporary. It may be needed for the longer time, but if we think it's something that is important to our town, it needs, stay, we need this position, then I think the better route is, as Mr. O'Neill said, to authorize the hiring from now and get the position in there. Council will consider its positions in totality. I'm a little concerned that this didn't come up in the budget process, if it was that important, but I still do think it's important, of course. And we could limit our exposure and see how it goes. Is this a blip? Is this a seasonal thing? Or is it not? And if it's not, then we, of course, have to take appropriate action, probably keep this person on, and maybe even look towards full-time, who knows, as the case may be. But this is not a temporary motion, though. This motion is for 3 years, locked in, and it sets exactly the expectation that once you have somebody for 3 years, like, this is the part of services that, the town of Wethersfield thinks is important, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not like this, oh, well, now we're going to get rid of them moment in time, right? But so I think if we realize and recognize that it for what it is, I will make a motion to amend and motion to amend pursuant to Mr. O'Neill's concept to add this position in our budget as he described until the council can reassess in totality at the time of our budget deliberations.
I'm just making sure Sue gets close to that motion, but I will try my best to give a synopsis. But just first, and maybe you can answer this, the reason why it wasn't brought up during the budget, and I know the position had already been discussed as a possible ARPA allocation back a year or two ago. But when did we realize that the dial ride wasn't the full 123,000, but now whatever was less than 95,000?
I'll let Kathy respond.
It would have been probably in when we were reviewing, we were going through all the ARPA funds, and we had a grant meeting, and we were going through everything to see what was left, and we realized that that was still on the books, and we hadn't had to use it. And part of that comes into when you use it, it's generally charged initially to the budget and then transferred in to cover that. And none of that had happened, and we realized we hadn't used the money.
Okay.
Can I? Sorry, are you done?
No, it's just, if you were going to come up with a budget, and as Councilman Forrest said, other departments had come before us with more maintainers, more staff, other positions. Town manager mentioned in his opening comments, the mason, they had all come before us at the budget period. This may not have been on your radar screen at the time, not knowing that ARPA allocation hadn't been fully spent down yet. I mean, is that what I'm getting at? Or that's what I'm getting at?
That's part of it, yes, certainly.
Gotcha. Okay. Councilwoman Carbone?
Thank you, Mayor Rell. I just want to make a comment about, I feel that the ARPA funds were put in place and were given to us to support its residents through a horrific experience. And we are expending this in certain areas that we think are going to help our town. And here we have a situation where we're going to directly impact the people of this town. There's a Board of Education member in our committee member who was fighting diligently to get more social work help in town. And I just feel like there's such a huge need for it. The money has already been expended. I think I commend you. I think you did a great job by realizing you had it, and let's shift it somewhere you can really benefit from it. And I think it's a mistake to make that motion, take it out of contingency at the end of the year. When it's here, there's a need, and we can help. And I'd rather not vote on Councilor Forrest's motion. I'd like to vote on this original motion as it presents, please.
Okay. Well, just going back, Councilman Forrest had made a motion
To amend it.
to amend it. I don't know if it had been seconded.
I did not hear one.
No, it was not.
And just a clarification, that was just for the rest of the fiscal year, so roughly 25,000.
Yeah, and I think the motion that Mike O'Neill suggested was that the council essentially approved the plan to hire part-time and individual through the end of the year, and allow the town manager and the department director to do that, and then cover it under the budget, and then at the end of in the fourth quarter, if it looks like they're going to be over, then we would talk about a transfer.
Yep.
I would second that motion.
Which one?
Counselor Forrest.
Councilor Forrest's motion is, as town manager has duly said, would be to go forward with the plan of a temporary employee from now until the end of the fiscal year, through the discretion of department head and the town manager. At that point, decide whether or not it would be feasible to pay for it through existing funds, or if existing funds in the Social and Youth Services Department has been expended, pull it out of contingency at the end of the fiscal year, or we
You could
fund,
use ARPA then too.
or we,
Yeah, but what's the motion? The motion's to
And then
amend
how
this
you fund
motion?
it in you decide whether or
Yeah.
not they continue on in January? Is that,
no,
so it'd still be for 3 years?
No.
No.
it would be just until June 30th of next
For
year.
8 months, or whenever we hire the person until June 30th.
And then
Like
possibly
everybody.
put it in as budgeted in as a position for that.
Right.
And to Councilman Forrest's point, at that point, council could decide to fund it through ARPA at that point, or fund it through the
Budget.
budget.
But again, to that point, it's, it's a 3-year part-time position. It's like, let the council in 3 years after this position's been expended go in that budget process, whether or not they're going to fund the position.
Right.
I mean, I just feel like we're complicating things. Go ahead.
I do feel like we're playing a shell game. I mean, a lot of you probably don't know I'm pro cupola, but I'm also pro social youth services. And I had already made a motion, and now there's a counter motion. And I feel like we're just playing a shell game. My attitude is, this is, and Counselor Cabron stated this very eloquently, this is exactly where these funds were supposed to go. This is addressing those who probably are suffering the most as a result of COVID, so I'm very comfortable pulling from there for this case, and I do think in 3 years, it'll be up to that council at that time to determine, hey, was it worthwhile? Did they need it? Were they overwhelmed? Or can we cut that and we're not in as much need for it? So I'm completely fine with the original motion, and I understand the logic behind the other stuff, but it's just a shell game. And my attitude is, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Mr. Fred Presley, Mr. Town Manager.
It's getting late.
Yeah.
It is. I'd just like to add, and I'll defer to Eric on this one, but I would caution too that if we just fund to the end of the fiscal year, or allow to the end of the fiscal year, it might be very difficult to recruit someone. It's a much different proposal to say, we'd like to hire you for 3 years, versus we want to hire you for 6 months. In recruiting somebody, that would be somebody we would want in the position. So I just throw that out there as a
Very good point.
Good point, yeah.
And need I remind you, was it 7 cents at the budget hearing? Was it 7 cents you were under or over? What was that? So, I think an appreciation, and I think you did a great job too. I'm assuming if in a year you realize you don't need the position, like you didn't need dial-a-ride, you'll cut it and be done with it, and we can move the ARPA funds somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be taking a look at what the needs are,
Oh, if we can-
for sure. But, I mean, to the town manager's point, it would be, I would expect, pretty difficult to tell someone that you potentially will be out of a job come January, when we'll start the hiring process, and
June.
probably won't get June, and we wouldn't get someone on probably for another, couple months, or at least a month or so.
And to Councilwoman Carbone's point, and to others' points, social workers are pretty hard to find right now.
Yeah, and retain.
And retain.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. With that, we have a motion that has been amended. Further discussion. All those in favor signify by.
Wait, yeah, which motion are we voting on?
This would be the amended version.
This is to amend-
The
this is to amend the
Councilman Forrest's amendment to go through with the hiring by staff discretion, start the hiring now, go to the end of the fiscal year, and at that point, the discretion of the, budget process would be to continue funding it through, or actually pay for the position through, because there would be an overage in their budget, to pay for it through contingency, just like we've done tonight earlier for that department. And then department head would present in their budget to council a 2-year plan, or at that point, maybe a permanent position. So is that the amended version?
Well, it's not, it's kind of a mischaracterized amended version. The motion is to hire a part-time person to handle it. That's it. And we, every year we allocate money for every position. Like on June 30th, everybody's position is up there. If we decide we don't want a director of whatever, we can reduce it. So this is to actually add until the council deems otherwise. And we fund positions from all sections, a part-time position for the place. It sets them up for success. They get a part-time person. Council's going to make this, doesn't make this decision like in its own vacuum. It's with everybody else. It hires a part-time person. It allows for the funding to be allocated at the end of the fiscal year for however we want to do it for that. And then we fund it as we deem appropriate. We may say we're going to take another year, but at least it gives us flexibility as a council. It, in the short term, saves us $50,000, so it's a little bit fiscally conservative, and still gets the job done. And still, no one's saying like this person's not going to be here in 6 months, just like we're not saying anybody else that's under employment by the town is not going to be here in 6 months. We think it's important. We're adding the position. The motion actually provides a more permanent solution for moving forward in social and youth services, and not a temporary one. This motion is for 3 years, and it's funded by the outside, and it's intended that it's going to go away. It's actually the 95,000 ARPA motions, actually really a more temporary thing. You're going to call them up and say, by the way, you're on a 3-year grant, versus the town of Wethersfield just approved your position in the,
That's not what he said.
moving forward. And so I think there's a couple ways to actually look at this. I was looking for the more flexible solution for the town while recognizing the needs now. That's the characterization or the intent that I would put forward.
Shouldn't we vote on the original motion first?
No, the protocols, we have to vote on the amendment.
Motion's
Wait, so-
been made and seconded, and then,
We have to vote on the amendment.
and then,
Matt, could you reread the motion? please? No, it's
No,
serious.
I'm
Just
serious. I
not-
would like to know the
Not the
exact motion we're
explanation,
voting
but
on.
just the actual motion that we're voting on.
I mean, I don't have it, I didn't read it in front of me. I was-
Susan, do you have it?
Motion to hire according to the advised Mike O'Neill.
It's really just, it's changing the funding source from ARPA to the current year appropriation and social use services.
And allowing the management to hire the position as accordingly.
With the caveat that it would be reevaluated.
Until the end, and then we can fund it.
Whether the position continues.
all right. Well, I've got
I think
motion
Sue can read it back, Mike.
fund a part-time, well, it's pretty easy, I mean, yeah, motion to fund a part-time staff position.
Not even fund, just authorize the hiring part-time, because the funding's there.
Oh, okay.
Through June 30th, though, correct?
Nope,
Yeah.
just fund.
It's not even through a date.
Yeah.
You're just hiring.
You're authorizing the position hire, that's it. We have to do it within our
To
budget.
reevaluate at the,
Well, to
Or-
Council Forrest's point, we'd have to, you'd reevaluate everything every budget year, so you don't need to expressly say that.
But would they have to add the position next fiscal year?
Yes, it would absolutely be part of the budget, because it's a new.
So again, there's a
position.
possibility that they could add it and then cut it, then next council could cut it next, following fiscal year, so.
Hard to recruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just harder to recruit.
To the town manager's point, that's what I have an issue with. I mean, contrary to what you were saying, Councilman Forrest, in that, somebody applies for the position, they hear that it's a 3-year position paid for, for the totality of the 3 years, versus you're going to get hired September 15th, you're on until the end of the fiscal year, and it's up to the discretion of the council to continue funding that position.
Every employee is in exactly the same, this employee wouldn't be in any different boat than anyone.
Right, but, I think the positions that we always talk about that are current positions in department budgets are full-time employees. This is a part-time employee that hadn't been vetted through the budget process. So, they were going to be advocating for that position again. I just think there's a cloud over that applicant's head when they're applying and hearing that that position may or may not be funded, through the regular budget process at the end of the year.
Okay.
Call the vote. Throw that out.
Motion and a second.
Okay, so the motion, if you will let me, Councilman Forrest, motion to authorize a part-time staff position in social and youth services.
Yep.
I like that motion.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Roll call needed, Sue?
Yes, please. Counselor Carbone?
Nay.
Counselor Clancy?
Nay.
Counselor Forrest?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Nay.
Counselor Lesser?
Nay.
Counselor O'Connor?
Nay.
Counselor Pentelow?
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Yes.
Mayor Rel?
Nay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let the record indicate that Councilman Forrest and the deputy mayor, as the Resiliency Committee has done, has brought the two together yet again.
Can we read this motion now?
Okay.
Does somebody, do we?
So,
Can we now
the
vote on the original?
amended motion had failed. The original motion is, I believe, still on the floor, has been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none?
She just said it wasn't made or seconded.
Oh,
Oh, it was before Matt amended.
I made it and
Dan
Pat
made it.
seconded it.
That's right. You got it?
I can say it again if you want.
no, we're good, Sue? So the original motion, which is in our agenda packet, has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying for 2 hours and 45 minutes for that.
I just want to know
And another quite possibly debated issue, the sidewalk repair program. This, if I recall, we discussed it at length at the budget negotiations as we were talking through. If I remember correctly, we did allocate, or we did put into the budget. $25,000
Yep.
for this. And before us tonight is,
So this just for more direction. So previously, the council had requested that staff look into a needs-based program for the funds. So engineering worked with both the assessor's office and social and youth services, looked at their qualifying list, were provided, and they compared those lists with the list of sidewalk repairs needed from the last 3 years, 21, 22, and the current year. And from There were 66 total properties that were identified as needing repairs from the engineering list, and of those, only 6 fell on either of the two lists of the assessor or social and youth services as qualifying as needs-based. With that being said, we're coming back to you essentially stating, are asking, would the council be open to a hybrid approach to this, where we do a first cut for needs-based, give them first option for the funding. We'll go through those that are qualifying. And by the way, by the current 2023 list, there were 2 that qualified on the current list of projects. So would you be open to a hybrid where we would do a period of time where we would just reach out to those that qualified and say this money's available if you are interested in participating, and if we did not get a positive response from them, then we would open it up to others in the town that were also on the list needing repairs? That's all I need is direction on that, one way or another.
Okay. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Okay, so this is going to sound harsh, as I was told. I'm not in agreement with having taxpayers pay for other property owners' sidewalk repairs. We have a policy, we have an ordinance that says the property owner will take care of their sidewalks. If they get a notice to replace their sidewalk and they don't follow through, the town has the ability to use funds that are available and have the sidewalk repaired or replaced, and then place a lien against the property owner's property. At some point in time, that's going to get resolved, maybe when they sell the property or otherwise. So I think there's already a policy in place, and I didn't have a problem with the needs-based aspect of it, but the data shows that there's very few people that would qualify, and we don't even know if those people would proceed with the program. And also keep in mind that the program is set up so that the property owner that is needs-based would have to come up with all the money to have the project completed and then seek reimbursement from the town. So I have to think that if you don't have funds available to repair some of your sidewalks, I don't see where you're going to come up with the money to repair all of them. So I don't think the process is going to work, and I just don't think it's a good policy to have some taxpayers pay for other people's property. And I could extend that to, let's say somebody gets a notification of a blight situation where there's a hole in their roof or a broken window or something of that condition. Should we use taxpayer money to correct that situation so that some taxpayers are paying for other people's property upkeep? I just don't see where that's fair to the population, even though it's an insignificant amount of money, $25,000. But I would be okay with keeping that $25,000 for a needs-based approach. But other than that, I'm not comfortable with that plan of paying for the work on a first-come, first-served basis after that.
Councilman Pentelo?
I think Matt had his hand up first.
No,
We'll go back and forth. Go ahead, buddy.
Generally, I think I agree with the deputy mayor. I'm concerned just as a precedent, or we might call it a hornet's nest, of using some taxpayers to pay for the improvements that are generally the responsibility of the homeowner, and it's been that way for a long time. I recognize the need to get some of these sidewalks out of disrepair, but the council decided to walk down this path. I respect it. But if we are going to walk down this path, I actually thought the numbers were pretty robust at six in one and 3 in another. I would love to keep this program going as we continue to inspect and continue to have them, that money is continued to be there for the people that need it the most. It might be tough sell, at least in my mind, to say, okay, now we open it up to the general public, non-needs based, and you know, Mr. Giant House, Mrs. Giant House, is doing really, really well, now getting the tax break from the town, and we run out of money for the needs-based, it's gonna go. It seems like for the amount of money, we have a nice target audience, which really could use the help that helps us in our overall goal of continuing to get the sidewalks done. I think the process as described might be able to be improved a little, as you just, maybe it's not pay for it all up front, maybe the town can directly chip in the half to help out that needs-based program, so that, I think that process could maybe be improved. You create a vendor number, whatever it is with the town, or something like that. But it's really, I think, gonna be a slippery slope of paying for some people's sidewalks or a part of them and having the next door neighbor not, and it not be a needs-based where this is what it's designed for. So I'd like to keep the res of the funds that we've allocated. We did this going in that we didn't know we were gonna do this year to year. This is not necessarily something that's just gonna get replenished every year at one number or another number. And as we continue to have inspections, let's continue to have that pool of money available for the residents that are not as well off, that could really use the money, and we have an easy way to identify those. But I thought the 6 and the 3, I don't know if that's 9 total, and you do 6, 7 slabs every time, or whatever it is, like, that money will start to go through. So generally with the deputy mayor, maybe an increase in process and payment to make it be effective, but not opening it up to someone that really can afford to take care of their property as we should.
Councilman Pentelow?
I feel like I'm part of the resilience committee because I agree with both of them. No, I would agree keeping it needs-based, but this is more of a question of the town manager. When you're talking about this program, would the intent be kind of like we treat all sidewalk repairs the same? So, town comes in, repairs it, then like Deputy Mayor just said, then we lien the house, right, for the sidewalk repairs. Would the intent of this be to operate as is, and then those need-based families could apply for forgiveness of the lien? Or are you talking about doing a cost-sharing program up front? Because to me, that the first actually seems more sensible, where it's like everybody's fixing the sidewalks, and then if you're needs-based, you could apply to forgive the lien.
The intent was that it was modeled after the facade improvement program, actually,
Okay.
and that's why it wasn't done as need-based. It's to encourage people to do what maybe they might not ordinarily do. I mean, most of the businesses that take advantage of the facade improvement program could certainly afford to do it themselves, but what made them go ahead and do the work and beautify the area is the incentive. So that's what it was based off of. On a needs-based approach, if we're going to go strictly with needs-based and given the numbers, I would suggest that maybe we do follow the model you're suggesting, but not just give them half, pay the whole thing, if that's the case, if there's a needs-based. Because if they don't have the money to pay $4,000, they're probably not going to have the money to pay for $500.
Correct.
So if that's the case, we can approach it differently.
That would be my suggestion moving forward. Keep it needs-based, but kind of just do what town manager just described.
Councilman O'Connor?
Just a different thought is, what if you just made it an interest-free loan and let them, I think we did that with the facade improvement program at one point, and people can go in and do their sidewalks, and then maybe the needs-based is reflective on the amount, how many years they get to pay that back. So if someone has a needs-based, maybe it's a 10-year note versus a 5-year note or whatever, and pay for it out of that. And I think you'll get more people who would probably take advantage of it because it's an interest-free loan, and you probably get more people fixing their sidewalks. Just a thought, but I know we did that with, I think, the facade improvement program many years ago, And a lot of people took advantage of it and improved their facade because they could do it for interest-free. And if the goal, like, the deputy mayor, I think, said, is, $25,000 is gonna go pretty fast. But if it's an interest-free loan and we lent it out of that, maybe put more in it, we get the money back, and we also accomplish the thing with getting the sidewalks fixed. So I think everybody kind of wins in that. So, just a thought.
Not something we've looked at, but we could certainly look at it if the council wants to.
A lot of administrative costs for
Yeah, I was gonna say for
$500
25,
sidewalk,
yeah.
you know?
That would be my only
Well,
concern
some of
about
those
that.
are
so.
thousands of dollars, though, they gotta replace.
Some, yeah.
Well, I was thinking more about that, maybe you have a limit,
Yeah.
We don't have a motion before us, correct?
No, and-
So we-
I was looking for direction. I don't
Yeah.
think I got clear direction from
That's
anyone.
what I was getting at.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think
if
most
there's-
of us are on the same page when it comes to being predominantly, if only need-based.
I'm
No
sorry.
matter- It's only need-based, right? I think we can all agree,
Yeah.
we're pretty much
Yeah,
all looking for only,
Talking to you.
sorry.
The other two are good ideas. I mean,
Well, no,
Just
I mean,
different-
it's just a
different
different way of
ideas.
doing it, and I think that's a great idea, Pat.
Yeah.
But the underlying theme is, we just want to keep it needs-based, I'm assuming, right, everyone?
And what about the notion of paying for all of it versus just half? Because I think, to the deputy mayor's point, you're still gonna have people who are like, look, I can't even afford the half. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, no, I think we should pay for the whole thing for the need-based people, and people that can afford to pay for it should be paying for it.
What are you talking about, lien? Oh, with the lien?
Or just needs-based. Doesn't have to be a lien, it could just be a process. We can look at the best approach to that. We'd have to be careful with the lien approach. We'd have to do everybody, right? Everybody, and you want to talk about fallout. So I'm not sure that's the best approach, but we can entertain it,
I
certainly.
mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like, nothing's ever, or I shouldn't say nothing. I would be surprised to learn that a lot of people have been leaned for not fixing their sidewalks.
I would be surprised as well, yeah.
We've had sidewalks that, residents have been complaining about for at least 4 years that I've been up here, and they perhaps got noticed a couple times, but nothing's happened. So, and I also just want to say that, unlike the facade program, this is not something to enhance somebody's property. It's to make it safe so people don't get hurt. And, the facade program, I like the program. I think it dresses up the town, it makes commercial properties more appealing to everybody, and I don't have a problem with that. But when you're fixing someone's sidewalk, nothing changes. It's just a...
Come on, I dressed up that section of walk it all the way down the corner.
I
That's
still
all.
walk
Come
on the other side of the road, so... Thank you.
Do you have enough direction?
I'll take a run at it. I think what we'll try to put together is a strictly needs-based approach, potentially funding the full amounts, and then we'll maybe reach out to some of these on the list here and see if it's a viable option for them, so.
I mean, do we know what those that are on this list have already received from the town? I mean, are some habitual?
Some get various resources from the town now, yes.
Right, no, but like violators of it, I mean, are there properties that have had,
Like minimum housing violations and things like that?
no, complaints about their sidewalk for 6 years,
Oh.
8 years, 10 years?
Some of them, at least, we went back 3 years, so some of them go back to 3 years, yeah.
All right, Councilman Forrest?
thanks, Mayor. Just as we're just sort of thinking about this, is if it runs out of money, the pool, right, and someone's cited for a violation, and now they're a needs-based violation, pool runs out of money, is the expectation now different for those people that they're gonna have to pay for the repairs? Still a responsibility, just like any landowner does, that they get it repaired, and is there now if you don't do the lien situation, which could still be consistent even after the funding, I'm thinking about consistency here a little. Is the next person in line like, well, you're just out of luck and now you got to pay for it, but it's still a needs-based? And maybe the answer is yes, because we just only have so much funds that we allocated. But I was just sort of, I think we're all trying to do the equity thing here and figure it out. So now, is that fair to the next person in line? Like, well, I didn't make it, blah, 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 but I still have to pay, but now my house is being liened. It's not like anyone loses their house, by the way, just because
Right.
you put a lien on it.
Correct.
Just no one's kicking anybody out of anybody's house, just in case anybody was thinking that. Or they get a bill or a fine or whatever it is. And I'm just wondering if there's an equity issue there at the end.
Interest-free loan, man.
And that may be a consideration as you sort of develop it, that maybe it's
Because then you're replenishing it.
a way
Still,
to think about it.
You get to the point of when the money's gone, though, like if
And who's going to enforce it?
if it's all gone this year with interest-free loans, there's no more to give, and that next one is still going to be found their sidewalk to be unsafe.
Yeah.
So is that the encouragement to get it done in a timely manner? Or is it, or is intent?
But we're still dealing with the equity piece, I think,
Have
is
we
the
ever run out of money on the facade improvement loan?
We did.
Yeah, we're constantly putting money in.
we do.
It's a little different because it's optional, right, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but.
It is different, you're right.
And then I guess maybe we would need to know from engineering, or is it, yeah, sidewalk inspector falls under engineering.
Yep.
Of the 6 properties that would qualify as needing repair and fall within the needs-based, do we know how many slabs it would be? And, I mean, have we did an inventory of how many?
I don't have those numbers. They do know, engineering does know.
I mean, that would kind of give us an idea. I'm just thinking, what did we say, it's $300 a slab? And 6 properties at 300, and then, I mean, you would come up with however many slabs there are. So, I don't know if we would run out of the 25,000 with 6 properties, at least for right now.
Yeah.
Do you have direction to kind of rework this a little bit?
Yeah, I'll get back with engineering, and we'll come up with a proposal based upon what
We answered your hybrid question, though, so at least you got some direction.
I did.
Thank you.
Here's the direction.
Crystal clear.
Yeah.
Let's go this way.
It's just,
The goal is to get more of these sidewalks repaired.
Yes, that is the goal, yeah.
okay.
It's roughly 14 slabs per house of 6 would equate to $25,000.
No way they're gonna have 14.
No way they're gonna have.
Maybe a couple homes, I don't know.
No.
So I don't think it would go through, but you've got direction, at least. We don't have to go beat this any further. Okay, moving on to the agenda, public comment, second portion of public comment. Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. Of the many subjects you talked about tonight, the several of those regarding the old academy and the Kinney Center are of great interest when you think about the fact how much time you spent on it. And when in reading the justification due to the current conditions of the roof, in this case, that there's water leakage going on, and you're admitting that you're not even taking care of the property. Yet, we spent a lot of time on it, and we have no use for those properties. We haven't had use for those properties in years, and we spend money time and time again on them. this 50-year lease that we're tied in with. That goes on to the year 2057. And we're going to be talking about these properties from now until then. And we should try to find a way to get rid of them. Divest, I think is the word. We're never going to use them. We're going to spend money on roofs, on sidings, whether it's brick being repaired. We're going to spend money washing their windows, mowing their lawns, cleaning their sidewalks. I mean, we have better places to spend our money than on something that we have no interest in. And we have no interest. We don't use it. Somebody else does. I mean, I could say the same thing for the Little Red Schoolhouse. We have absolutely no use for it, yet we continue to own it. And we should consider getting rid of it, divest. Get rid of it, get it off the books, get the public utilities off our books for those properties, and let someone else take care of it. I mean, that's a business decision. I don't know if you guys are up to it. And the way but you have to be for the sake of the taxpayer. Why should the taxpayer continue to pay for the upkeeps of these buildings when we have no use for them? I mean, the Standish House, we could say the same thing. We have no use for it as a town property. Yet we continue spending on all those items. It wasn't no more than a few years ago, you spent a couple $100,000 painting the Standish House. And how much do we get? $100 a year. That's it. We get nothing. We own it. We should divest it because it's a lost leader to us. And let someone who is really a historic type person own it, who will take care of it. They'll keep it up, and they'll pay the bills that those buildings incur. Why should we, as citizens, pay for that? I've never had an explanation why we should. And I think you should tell us why. Of course, you're moot. What else can I say? You don't answer questions. You've had it put to you many times. And no answers. But you should come out with answers. And I think the answer is we need to get rid of these properties. And got no use for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes